ఆల్రెడీ స్టార్ట్ చేసిన. స్ట్రింగ్ స్టార్టెడ్ అయింది. సో వన్ సెకండ్. స్టార్ట్ అయింది. వన్ సెకండ్. కొంచెం షేర్ చేస్తున్నాను. అమ్మ డోరేమా
spelling ఏంటా?
హెచ్
అది కష్టమే. క్వాలిఫై అవ్వడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేస్తున్నాను.
అందరికి పంపిస్తాం. నీ పేరు పెట్టరా? రికార్డ్స్ ఓకే. ఇది మెసేజ్ సర్లే యాడ్ యాడ్.
రే వినయ్, ఒకసారి నా ఫోన్లోకి వెళ్ళి నీ ఫోన్లోకి వెళ్ళి నా ఛానల్ కొట్టి అది వస్తుందిలే చూడవా?
ఎవరది?
ఎవరా? నాకేం తెలుసు. నీకేం చెప్పాను? ఎంత టెంపరేచర్?
తక్కువ
27 ఉందా? బంద్ చేస్తాను సార్, బాగా చదివేస్తుంది.
రొట్టె కింద కూర్చున్నా గారు. ఎగ్జాక్ట్
2 నిమిషాలు నన్ను పెడతా. జోష్కి వచ్చింది కాబట్టి పెడతా. అమ్మా నువ్వు జోక్స్ సీరియస్గా చెప్పేసి. ఓకే రే వస్తుంది. మాటలు వినబడుతున్నాయా? అక్కడి నుంచి ఇక్కడ రావడం కాదు, జనరల్ అయితే వినబడుతుంది కదా. ఓకేనా?
స్టార్ట్ బటన్.
అరే 12 to 45 స్టార్ట్ చేద్దామా?
ఓకే 3 minutes ఆగు.
అది తర్వాత మేము మళ్ళీ రీవెరిఫికేషన్ చేసుకుంటాం. మా కాకపోతే మేము పాస్ ఫార్వర్డ్ కొట్టుకోవడానికి అవి చూసుకుంటూ ఉండాలి.
రాసి పెట్టుకుంటాను, తర్వాత మళ్ళీ రాయాలి. ఎట్లా సబ్మిట్ చేసి
ఎక్కువ మళ్ళీ అది ఎలా మిస్సెస్ చేయడం కష్టం అవుతుంది మనకి.
రేపులు పెట్టుకోరు కింద.
ఏంటి ఏంటి సంథింగ్
నేనేం మాట్లాడరా మాట్లాడరు
దొరికేస్తా కూడా. అరే నువ్వు మాత్రం ఎదురు కూర్చోకురా, ఖచ్చితంగా నవ్వుతాను.
అరే నిజంగా నువ్వు నవ్వించాలని నమ్మేస్తారు ఇప్పుడు. అసలు 2:45 ఉంది.
ఇంకా 2 నిమిషాలకి ఏ లోపల అవే
చాలే.
అంతే.
అరే ఇగో ఈ క్వశ్చన్ చూసుకోరా ఫస్ట్. ఇట్లా అడుగుతుంది సార్ జావా
గట్టి మాట్లాడాలి కదా.
సో నన్ను చూస్తూ కొద్దిగా నన్ను చూస్తూ
మరి రోల్ ఎవరు చేస్తారా?
రోజు నేను ఉన్నా కదా ఇక.
ఓకే ఓకే ఓకే.
కెమెరాని చూస్తున్నట్టు చూడు, డైరెక్ట్ ఆన్సర్లు చూస్తున్నాడు చూడకు, మంచిగా ఉండదు
అన్న. ఆన్సర్లు ఎక్కడ క్వశ్చన్ 500 క్వశ్చన్లు ఒక్కదానికి ఆన్సర్ తెలియదు.
చూసి చెప్పలేరా కాబట్టి అట్లా చూసి చెప్పేటట్టు చేయి, యాక్టింగ్ చేయి. ఏదో పెద్ద ఫిలింగ్ అన్నీ అంతే. సింపుల్ వర్కులు తిన్నప్పుడు మేడంలో నిర్మించడం
కెమెరా అదరే కాకుండా స్క్రీన్లో పెట్టాలి, అప్పుడు ప్రాబ్లం ఉండదు.
మీ టైం అవుతుంది 44
సెకండ్స్ చెప్పండి రా. 10 9 8 7 స్టార్ట్.
ఎందుకు అసలే ఎగ్జామ్ పెడతావు?
1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9
స్టార్ట్ చేద్దాం కదా. 2:45 పెట్టినట్టు పెడదాము.
ఎగ్జాక్ట్ 2:45కి మీరు స్టార్ట్ చేస్తాం.
చేసారా?
ఎన్ని మిల్లీ సెకండ్స్ కూడా కౌంట్ అన్నారు కదా.
మిల్లీ సెకండ్స్లో డైరెక్ట్ అవర్స్ మినిట్స్ ఇచ్చింది మేడం.
ఇచ్చిండు 1 సెకండ్ ఇచ్చిండు. స్టార్ట్ చేస్తారా? ఓకే
చేసి 1 నిమిషం ముందు స్టార్ట్ చేస్తే ఏం పోతుంది, కరెక్ట్ సెట్ అయింది.
దూరం ఎందుకురా,
స్టార్ట్
చేసుకో.
స్టార్ట్ చేస్తున్నా.
చేస్తున్నా.
అరే నీకు సచ్చినరా వెళ్ళు. అరే చూస్తుండు మంచిగా వస్తుందా లేదో, బయటికి వెళ్ళి. ఓకే
యా స్టార్ట్.
Hey guys, good afternoon. This is Amar from Referrals Fiverr, Verify and of course Video Preferred. So guys, today we are going to participate in Guinness World Record for continuous live streaming over internet for around couple of hours, like around 40 hours. It's not couple of hours, of course. And so like we have more and more participants with us coming on, and we'll be discussing about the various topics like science, technology, general knowledge, quiz programs, everything. And this is not a team interview, but this is an individual interview. And I have one of my friend named Pramod. He's my friend and he's my BTech friend, and he's working in a company, and he has a knowledge on Java and all the programming kind of stuff. So I has given you some questions. So I have some of the questions in my laptop. So like I'll be asking him the questions and he'll be answering me, and that's all guys. And without any delay, let's get started. So Pramod, can you tell me about yourself first of all?
I myself Pramod. I've been working in the instructional graphic designer in the SR Digital Technologies, which is located near Hapsiguda, and I've completed my graduation in BTech, Jawaharlal Nehru Architecture University. And coming to me, I said Amar is my best friend, and we have worked together for so many years. That's it. Thank you.
And can you tell me about your course first of all?
Okay, my course consists of 4 streams, which includes IT sector, architecture, and GIS and multimedia.
Okay, and so like I'll be asking you regarding the Java questions now.
Okay,
first
sure.
of all, and we'll be continuing to the later on questions.
Yeah, sure.
So tell me first of all, what do you know about Java actually?
Java is a high-level programming language originally developed by Sun Microsystems and released in 1995. Java runs on various platforms such as Windows, Mac, and the various versions of Unix.
Okay, fine. And what are the supported platforms by Java programming language?
Java runs on variety of platforms such as Windows, Mac OS, and various versions of Unix, Linux, and HP Unix, Sun Solaris, Red Hat Linux, Ubuntu, etc.
Okay, list any 5 features of Java.
Some features of Java include object-oriented, platform-independent, and robustic, interrupted, multi-threaded.
Why is Java architectural neutral?
its compiler generates an architectural neutral object file format, which makes the compiled code to be executable on many processors with the presence of Java runtime system.
How Java language enabled high performances?
Java uses a just-in-time compiler. It enables high-performance just-in-time compiler is a program that runs Java bytecode, which is a program that contains instructions that must be interpreted into instructions that can be sent directly to the processor.
Why Java is considered as a dynamic programming language?
It is designed to be adopt an involving environment. Java programs can carry extensive amount of runtime information that can be used to verify and resolve access to objects on runtime.
Just give me a second more.
Yeah.
So, what is Java Virtual Machine and how it is considered in context of Java's platform independent feature?
When Java is compiled, it's not compiled into platform-specific machine, rather to the platform-independent bytecode. This bytecode distributed over the web and interpreted by virtual machine on whichever platform it's being run.
List 2 Java IDEs.
NetBeans, Eclipse, etc.
Okay, fine. List some of the keywords in Java.
Some Java keywords are import, final, super, etc.
And in which semester did you learn Java framework?
Third semester.
Okay. So in semester you learn more, or in the classrooms, or else after your college you learn more to Java?
In the classroom itself, I've learned some of the aspects, and out of the box, I've taken the coaching in the outside in talent sprint.
Okay. So what do you mean by an object?
An object is a runtime entity that is stored in field and behavior is shown via methods. Methods operate on objects' internal states and serve as a primary mechanism for object-to-object communication.
Can you define me a class?
Yeah. A class is a blueprint which involves individual objects are created. A class can run fields and methods to describe the behavior of an object.
What kind of variables can a class consist of?
A class consists of local variables, instant variables, and class variables.
And what is a local variable?
Variable is the inside methods, construction, or blocks called the local variables. The variables will be declared and initialized within the method, and it will be destroyed when the method has completed.
Okay. What is an instance variable?
Instance variables are available within a class but outside any method. These variables are instantaneous when the class is loaded.
What is a class variable?
These are the variables declared within the class outside any method with the static keyword.
So what is a singleton class?
A singleton class control object creation, limitation the number to 1, but allowing the flexibility to create more objects if the situation changes.
Okay, what do you mean by a constructor?
A constructor gets invoked when a new object is created. Every class has a constructor. If we do not explicit write a constructor for a class, the Java compiler builds a default constructor for that class.
List any 3 steps for creating an object for a class.
An object is first declared, then instantaneous, and then initialized.
Okay. What is the default value of a byte type data type in Java?
The default value of byte type data type is 0.
Okay. What is the default value of float double data type in Java?
The default value of float double type in different as compared to C++. The float is 0.0f and for the double is 0.0d.
When a byte data type is used?
This data type is used to save space in large arrays, mainly in the place of integers, since a byte is 4 times smaller than int.
What is a static variable?
The class variables are also known as the static variables, are declared within the static keywords in the class but outside a method and the constructor or a block.
Okay, so what do you mean by an access modifier?
Java provides the access modifier to set access levels of class, variables, and methods and the constructions. A member of package or default accessibility when no accessibility modifier is specified.
What is protected access modifier?
Variables, methods and the constructions when not declared protected in a superclass can be accessed only by a subclass or in other package or any class within the package of the protected members class.
Okay. What do you mean by synchronized non-access modifier?
Java provides these modifiers for providing functionalities other than the access modifiers synchronized and to indicate that a method can be accessed by only one thread at a time.
According to the Java operator, the precedence, which operator is considered to be with the highest precedence?
Postfix operators, that is at the highest precedence.
Variables used in a switch statement can be used with which type of data types?
Variables used with a switch statement can be used with int, byte and character.
Okay. So when parseInt method can be used?
ParseInt, this method to be used primary data type at a certain string.
Okay. Why string class is considered as immutable?
The string class is considered immutable, so once it is created a string, object cannot be changed. Since the string is immutable, it can be safely be shared between the many threads, which is constructed very important for the multi-threading programming.
Why is string class considerable? Why is string buffer called mutable?
The string buffer considered to be immutable. Once the thread is so that once it is created a string, objects cannot be changed. If it is necessary to make a lot of modification to strings of characters, then the string buffer should be used.
Okay, and Pramod, can you tell me about some more about your course? Like, what is multimedia in your course actually?
Multimedia consisting of 2D animations, 3ds Max, Maya, and modeling softwares, all comes under the multimedia softwares. Multimedia used including the graphic design works also comes under the multimedia.
Okay, so coming towards our topic.
Okay.
Actually, I was also in the multimedia, so I have a little bit of knowledge on multimedia. So I was asking.
Yeah, we are both aware of it.
Yeah, of course. So, what is the difference between string buffer and string builder class?
Use of the string builder whenever it's possible, because it is faster than the string buffer. But if the thread safety is necessary, then the use of string buffer objects.
Which package is used for pattern matching with regular expressions?
Java util regex package is used for the purpose.
Java.util.regex consists of which classes?
Java.util.regex consists of pattern classes, matcher classes, and the pattern, syntax exception, etc.
Okay, just give me 1 second. Yeah. So, what is finalize method?
It's possible to define a method that will be called just for the object final destruction by the garbage collector. This method is called finalize, and it is used to ensure that an object terminates cleanly.
Okay. What is an exception?
An exception is a problem that arises during the execution of the program. Exceptions are caught by the handlers positioned along the threads, methods, invocation status.
Okay, what do you mean by checked exception?
It's an exception that typically uses errors of the problem that cannot be foreseen by the programmer. For example, if a file is to be opened but the file cannot be found, an exception error, this exception can simply be ignored at the time of compilation.
Explain me the runtime exceptions.
It is an exception that runs probably will have been avoided by the programmer, and opposed checked exceptions, runtime exceptions, are ignored at the time of compilations.
Which are the two subclasses under exception class?
The two subclasses under exception class are IO exception and the runtime exception, etc.
Actually, recently when I was working in my company,
okay.
I've gone through that runtime exception actually.
Okay.
So at that time I used try and catch method block actually.
Okay.
This was
nice.
Just 2 days before itself I got that error.
That's good.
Okay. When throws the keyword is used? When throws keyword is used actually. Sorry
okay.
for the question.
Yeah. If a method does not handle a checked exception, the method must declare it's using the throws keyword. The throws keyword appears at the end of the method signature.
Okay. How final used under exception handling?
The final keyword is used to create a block of code that follows by the try block. The final try code block always executes whenever or not exception has occurred.
Okay, what things should be kept in mind while creating your own exceptions in Java?
While creating own exceptions in Java, all exceptions must be child and throwable. If you want to write a checked exception that automatically enforced by the handle or a declared rule, you need to extend the exception class. If you want to write a runtime exception, you need to extend the runtime exception class.
Okay, can you please so now let's discuss about the OOPS concept. Actually, that is object oriented programming structure.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's discuss about what is inheritance actually.
Okay, sure. It is a process when it is object acquires the properties of another, which is used of inheritance. The information made manageable is a hierarchical order.
Okay. When super keyword is used actually?
The method overrides one of its superclass methods. Overridden method can be invoked through the use of the keyword super. It can also be used to refer the hidden field.
Okay. So can you explain me what is polymorphism?
Polymorphism is the ability of an object to take many forms. The most common use of the polymorphism is OOP oops occurs when a parent class reference is used to refer the child class object.
Sorry for that. Okay. So what is an abstract class?
This class cannot be instantialized and either partially implemented and are not at all implemented. This class contains one or more abstract methods which are simply methods declared without a body.
Okay, before that I forgot to ask you what is abstraction actually.
Okay, that's good. It refers to the ability to make a class abstract in OOPS. It helps to reduce the complexity and also improves the maintainability of the system.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, when abstract methods are used actually?
If you want a class containing of particular method, you want the actual implementation of that method to be determined the child class, or you can declare the method in the parent class as abstract.
Okay, can you please explain me what is encapsulation?
It is a technique of making the fields in the private class private and providing the access to the field via public methods. Its field declares as it is a field declared as a private. It cannot be accessed by anyone outside of the class, hereby hiding the fields within the class. Therefore, the encapsulation is also referred to the data hiding.
That's good. And so, what is primary benefit of encapsulation actually?
The benefit of encapsulation is the ability to modify our implemented code with the breaking of code of others who use our code. This is the encapsulation gives the maintainability, flexibility and extensibility to our code.
Okay. What is an interface?
An interface is a collection of the abstract methods. A class implements an interface, hereby interfering the abstract methods of the interface.
Give some features of interface actually.
The features of interface are interface includes interface cannot be initialized, and all interface does not contain the constructors. All the methods in the interface are abstract.
There are many fields in Java actually. There are many topics.
It's an ocean.
Yeah, it's an ocean actually. So define a package in Java actually.
A package can be defined a grouping of classes and interfaces, enumerations, annotations, and also providing access protection and the namespace management.
Okay. So actually, when we are working with the packages in Java, we generally call it as a folder. Folder. Yes. Because all the classes will be present, all the inheritance, multiple inheritance will be present in Java. So sorry, in the package. And we use multiple inheritance for acquiring one class property to the another class.
Okay.
That's all. So I have a little bit knowledge on Java, that's all. And why packages are used?
The packages are used to prevent the naming conflicts, to control the access, to make the searching, locating and use of the classes, interfaces and enumerations and annotations etc. easier.
So actually what do you mean by a multi-threaded program?
A multi-threaded program contains two or more parts that can run concurrently. Each part of such program is called a thread, and each thread defines a separate path of the execution.
Okay, so what are the two ways in which thread can be created?
A thread can be created by implementing the running interface and extending the thread class.
Okay, so can you want the camera preview in the screen, or else is this fine? The preview of my questions is fine.
Preview of your questions is fine to me.
Just a second, I'll try to change if possible.
Okay.
This is good.
It's comfortable.
1 second. Just give me 1 second. So I hope this is very good for you.
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay. So what is an okay, fine. What is an applet?
An applet is a Java program that runs in the web browser. An applet can be fully functional Java application because it is a entire Java API at its disposal.
Okay, so an applet extends with an applet extended which class actually?
An applet extends the class of java.applet.class.
Okay. So explain the garbage collection in Java.
The garbage collection in Java, it uses the garbage collection to free the memory by cleaning those objects that is no longer referenced by any of the program.
Okay, define immutable object.
Immutable object that cannot be changed once it is created.
Okay, so explain the usage of this with the constructor. This function actually, not this. This is a function.
Okay, I got it. It is used this function. It is used to variables or methods, and is used to call the constructor of the same class.
Explain the set interface.
I didn't get you.
Explain set interface.
Okay. It is a collection of elements which can be contain duplicate elements. The set of interface contains only methods inherited from the collection and the adds. The restriction that duplicates the elements are prohibited.
Can you just give me 1 second?
Yeah, great.
I hope this one is fine, right? Everything? Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Let's maximize this design. Actually, this is not that required for me. So just for preview of that. And
Okay.
so sorry for the pass actually.
Yeah.
And what is comparable interface?
It is a sort of collections and arrays of the objects using the collection.sort, which includes the brackets also, and the java.utils. The objects of the class implements of and the comparable interface can be ordered.
Okay, explain the tree set actually.
Explain that.
Tree set in Java.
Okay. It is a set implemented when we want the element to be sorted in order.
Okay, can you tell me the difference between throw and throws exception?
Throw is used as a trigger and exception, where the throws is used as a declaration of exceptions. Without throws, the checked exceptions cannot be handled, whether the checked exceptions can be propagated with the throws.
Explain the following line used under the Java program. So, okay, this was very big question for you, Daemon. We learned together in the I learned in my class.
Okay.
So please explain me what is public static void main string args.
Okay. Public is then coming to the program. Public static void means string args. Public is an access modifier. Static is allowed to main method that is called to be initialized at a particular instance of a class. Void is affirms the compiler. The no value can be written in the void place. Coming to the main, this is a main method. It has been associated in the beginning of the program. The string args, the args parameter of the instance of the array class string.
Okay. Define JRE, that is the Java
Runtime environment.
Yes.
Java runtime environment is an implementation of the Java virtual machine. When it executes a Java program, it provides the minimum requirement for the execution of the Java applications.
Okay. What is an jar files?
Jar file is a Java architecture file, and it aggregates the many files one into one. It holds the Java classes in a library. Jar files are the public on a zip file format and have jar file extension.
What is a WAR file?
Web archive file.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a web archive file and used to store the XML and the Java classes and the Java server pages, which is used to distribute the collection of the Java server pages, Java servlets, Java classes, XML files, and the static web pages, etc.
So give me 1 second. What is a defined JIT compiler?
It improves the runtime performance of the computer program based on the bytecode.
Okay, what is the difference between object-oriented programming language and object-based programming language?
The object-based programming language follows all the features of the OOPS except the inheritance. JavaScript is an example of the Java-based programming languages.
Okay, what is the purpose of a default constructor?
The Java compiler creates the default constructor only if there is no constructor in the class.
Can a constructor can be made final?
No, this is not possible.
Okay. What is a static block?
It is used to initialize the static data member. It is used to execute before the method at the time of the class loading.
Define composition.
Holding the reference of the other class within the some other class is known as a composition.
Okay. What is function overloading?
It is a class as multiple functions. Excuse me. Yeah.
Can you decrease the brightness of the screen?
Yeah, you can.
I think it's not visible, but we'll see.
Yeah,
It's
it's
okay.
okay.
Yeah. So where we are? What is function overloading?
Okay, it is a class has a multiple functions by some name of the different parameters. It is known as a function method overloading.
And what is function overriding?
It is if a subclass provides specific implementations of the method that is already provided by its parent class, which is known as a method overriding.
Okay. So can you give the differences between overloading and overriding?
The method overloading increases and the readability of the program. Method overloading provides the specific implementations of the method that is already provided by its superclass. Parameters must be different. In the case of the overloading, parameters must be in the same case of the overriding.
So what is a final class?
The final class is created so that the methods implemented by the class cannot be overridden. It can be inherited.
So are you comfortable right now?
Yeah.
So what is a null pointer exception?
Null pointer exception is thrown when calling the instance method of the null object accessing or modifying the field of a null object, etc.
So Pramod, I want to ask you some personal questions.
Okay.
Like when did you started your BTech?
My BTech was started in 2013, September 30th.
What's your MSET rank?
My MSET rank is in 70s, I guess.
In 70,000.
Yeah.
For me, the MSET rank, there is no difference between hall ticket and MSET rank actually. And okay, so what are the ways in which a thread can enter the waiting state?
Excuse me?
What are the ways in which a thread can enter in the waiting state?
Okay, thread can enter the waiting state by invoking its sleep method, by blocking on IO exception, unusual attempting to acquire the object's lock, or by invoking the object's wait method. It can also enter the waiting stating by invoking its deprecated suspended method.
Okay, how does multi-threading takes place in computer with a single CPU?
An operating system task scheduler allocates the execution time to multiple tasks by quickly switching between the executive tasks. It creates the impression that tasks execute sequentially.
What invokes a thread's run method?
After a thread is started via its start, the method is thread class. The JVM invokes the thread class, the thread's runtime method when the thread is initially executed.
Does it matter in which order catch statements for a file not found exception and IO exception are written?
Can you repeat the question?
does it matters in what order the catch statements for file, not find exception, and the IO exception are written?
Yes, it does. The file not found exception is inherited from the IO exception. The exception subclass have to be caught first.
Okay. So what is the difference between yielding and sleeping?
The task involves the yield method. It turns to be read state. When the task involves the sleep method, it turns to be in a waiting state.
Okay. What is a vector class why vector class is used?
The vector class provides the capability of implementing the throwable array of objects. The vector proves to be very useful if you don't know the size of the array in advance, or you just need that one can change the size over the lifetime of the program.
How many bits are used to present Unicode, ASCII, UTF-16 and UTF-8 characters?
Unicode requires 16, I guess, and the ASCII code requires 7 bytes. Although ASCII characters set use of only 7 bytes, it's usually represented as 8 bytes. UTF represents 8, and the character strings use 8, 16, and the characters use 16 8 byte patterns. UTF-16 uses the 16 byte and the large bit patterns.
What are the wrapper classes?
The class that allows the primary types to be accessed as objects, example integer, character, and the double boolean, etc.
Okay, what is the difference between a window and a frame?
Sorry?
What is the difference between a window and a frame?
The frame class extended window to be defined in main application window when it have to a menu bar.
Okay, so which package has lightweight components?
Which package has lightweight?
Lightweight components.
The Java Swing package, all the components in Swing except Java Applet, Dialog, JFrame, and JWindow are the lightweight components.
What is the difference between the paint and the repaint method?
The paint method supports the painting via graphics objects. Repaint method provides the cause painting to be invoked by the AWT painting thread.
Sorry. What is the purpose of file class?
It is used to create the object that provides the files and the directories of the local file system.
Okay, what is the difference between reader, writer class hierarchy and the input-output stream class hierarchy?
The reader-writer class hierarchy is a character-oriented, and the input stream and the output stream of the hierarchy is a bytecode oriented.
Okay. Which class should be used to obtain design information about an object?
The class is used to obtain the information about the object, about the object's design, and the Java.lang .class. Class instance represents the class's interfaces is running in a Java application.
Okay. So, can you explain the difference between the static and non-static variable?
Static and non-static. Can you repeat the question?
What is the difference between static and non-static variables?
Static variable is associated with the class as a whole rather than the specific instance of a class. Non-static variable take on the unique values with each object's instance.
Okay. So actually this serialization, deserialization, we got in when I was writing IBM interview, I got these questions I was asking you right now. Okay. So what is serialization and deserialization?
It's not serialization, it's serialization, I guess.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm not that expert in Java, I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. Serialization is a process of writing the state of object byte stream. Deserialization is a process of restoring these objects.
Okay. It's okay. What are the... I can sleep now after this question, I think. What are the use cases actually?
Use cases. Okay. It's a part of an analyst of a program and describes a situation that a program might encounter and what behavior the program should exhibit that in the circumstances.
Okay, explain the use of subclass in a Java program.
A subclass inherits all the public and the protected methods and implementation. It also inherits all the default modifiers, methods, and the implementation.
How to add menu shortcuts to the menu item?
If there is a button instance called B1, you may add menu shortcut by calling B1 set
set method of
Okay. Set method. Yeah, correct. Thank you. So user may be able to use Alt F to click the button.
Okay. So
Can you ask some easy questions?
I'll try my level best to ask. No, I'll ask 6 very serious questions so that all my viewers in my channel can be understand, and if they want anything like that, they can see here. Okay, can you write a Java class that could be used both as an applet as well as an application?
Yes. Just add a method. Just add a main method to an applet.
What is the difference between Swing and AWT components?
The AWT components are the heavyweight, whereas the string components are the lightweight. Heavyweight components depends on the local windowsing toolkit. For example, Java AWT button is a heavyweight component. When it is running on the Java platform or the Unix platform, it maps to a real Moffat button.
You have completed the questions very fast from me actually. So
yeah, I'm basically tired of because I'm from the office.
okay. So what's even the FET ID have to be for some like around 11 o'clock, it doesn't matter.
No, I can't. It doesn't look like the movie.
No, the movie does not matter here.
Matter
Here
for
we
me.
have interview man. Okay. What's the difference between constructor and over methods?
The constructor and the over methods. Okay, the constructor must have the same name as the class and cannot be written a value. There are only once called, while regular methods will be called many times.
Is there any limitations of using inheritance?
Yes, inheritance inherits everything from the superclass and interface. It makes the subclass to clustering and sometimes error prone when dynamic overriding and the dynamic overloading in some situation.
So, Pramod, I want to ask you, what is your favorite food?
My favorite food is biryani.
So, this is Ramzan season, right?
Yeah.
So, how many halims you had till now?
4.
Only 4.
Yeah. Because in the starting itself it's kind of excitement while having the halims. After that I am busy with my office work and busy with my personal stuff. That's why I don't have it. But again I have to have it in the past in the coming week. I
So,
guess.
actually, what is your favorite sweet?
My favorite sweet is kalakan and laddu, gulab jamun, etc.
Oh, this
Many.
is your favorite. Yeah, you are a
Multi
sweet-
favorites.
Yeah. And so, how many times you had halim till now from your childhood birth? It's many times?
No, it's a countless.
It's a countless. Okay. So, what is your favorite chicken dish? Not non-veg dish. Sorry.
Non-veg dish. Yeah, chicken rolls, chicken drumsticks.
Oh, there are also multiple actually.
Yeah, there are also multiple.
Okay. So, coming towards our topic.
Yeah.
Can you call one constructor from another if a class has multiple constructors?
Yes, use this as a syntax.
Okay, this method we have to use as a syntax,
Yeah,
right?
this method.
Okay. What is the difference between the method sleep and wait?
The code sleep is 2000. Put thread aside for exactly 2 seconds. The code wait is 2000. Pauses the wait for 2 seconds. A thread could stop waiting earlier if it receives the notify and notify all methods. The method wait is defined in the class object and the method sleep is defined in the class thread.
Okay. So, what is an arithmetic exception is thrown? When an arithmetic exception is thrown?
An arithmetic expression is thrown when the integer is divided by 0 or taking the remainder of number of 0 when it is never thrown on the float point operations. Are you tired?
No, I'm not tired. It is
Even
because
I came from the office, even I am
no,
not probably.
since
you are
morning I
feeling
was
drowsy.
waiting for your valuable appointment. So I just woke up in the morning 7 o'clock and I was waiting for you and see it's like afternoon and full of AC.
Yeah,
so
even I have gone through some complications, that's why I could not attend in the morning.
yeah, okay. So okay, it's okay, but we have started now. So it's almost like around we have completed
Half an hour, I guess.
No, it's not half an hour.
Hmm.
It's 8 minutes short of 45 minutes.
Okay.
It's 33 minutes actually, just half an hour.
Yeah.
So
That's
what
all.
is a transient variable?
A transient variable is a variable that may not be serialized during the serialization, which is initiated by its default value of deserialization.
Okay, so actually we use this term most probably in
Yeah.
mobiles,
Okay.
in anywhere. Okay, so what is synchronization?
Synchronization is the capability of to control the access of the multi-thread to share restores. Synchronized keyword in the Java provides the locking when ensure the mutual access of thread resource and prevent data race.
Okay, so what is an collections? What is the collections API?
The collection API is a set of classes and interfaces that supports the operations on the collection of objects.
So actually in our office we use that term when API came, I got remembered.
Okay.
In our office we use an API, that is REST API actually, for all our login screen and everything. So now we have to, as I'm an Android developer, now I have to call this REST API in my login screen. I have to log in. So that's a collection. So it was a remembrance for me also with you.
Thank you.
And does garbage collection guarantee that a program will not run out of memory?
The garbage collection does not guarantee that a program will not run out of the memory. It's possible for the programmers to use up the memory resources faster than they are garbage collected. It's also possible for the programmers to create the objects that are not subject to garbage collection.
Okay. The immediate superclass of the applet class.
Panel is an immediate superclass. A panel is provided space in which the application can attach any other component, includes the other panels.
Okay. Which Java operator is right associative?
The is equal to operator is right associative, I guess.
Okay. What is the difference between a break statement and a continuous statement?
A break statement results in which the termination of the statement to which applies switch, per, do, or while. Continuous statements is used for the end of the current loop, iteration, and the return control to the loop of statement.
Okay. So actually, like, if a variable is declared as private, okay, where maybe the variable can be accessed.
Okay, a private variable may only be accessed within the class which when it is declared.
Okay, what is the purpose of the system class?
The purpose of the system class is to provide the access to the system resources.
List primitive data types, Java types are sorry.
Okay, the list of the primitive Java data types are byte, char, short, integer, double, and boolean.
And this Java types are not object oriented. So even though Java is a object oriented programming language, but because it uses the primitive data types, the Java is not an 100% object oriented programming language.
Yeah.
But whereas a Python and this coming the Kotlin is also Kotlin, which we use for Android, is like 100% programming language, because int itself is also an object there.
Okay.
What is the relationship between the clipping and repainting under AWT?
When the window is repainted by the AWT painting thread, it sets by clipping regions to the areas of the window that requires painting.
Okay. And which class is immediate superclass of the container class?
The component class is the immediate superclass of the container class.
Okay. So what class of exceptions are generated by runtime system?
Can you get my question once again?
What classes of exceptions are generated by the runtime system?
The Java runtime system generates the runtime exception and the exception error exception.
Sorry for that. Under what conditions is an object finalized method invoked by garbage collector?
The garbage collector involves an object finalized method when it detects to that of the objects has become unreachable.
How can a dead thread be restarted?
A dead thread cannot be restarted, by the way, as you know.
Which arithmetic operations can result in the throwing of an arithmetic exception?
An integer and a percentile can result throwing of an arithmetic exception.
So when we use, actually previous question was regarding thread, right? So when we are using writing the Selenium code, the automation code,
okay,
I use thread a lot, and please, yes, I need to watch it then, yeah. So we use a thread a lot like that, and we use try catch bug that throws and throw exceptions a lot in our programming actually. But now we are not programming, we are using that video editing and everything.
Okay.
So how can a dead thread be variable of the boolean type is automatically initialized as?
The default value of the boolean type is false.
So can try statements be nested?
Yes.
Okay, what are the class loaders?
The class loaders is an object that responsible for the loading class, and the class loaders is an abstract class also.
What is the difference between an interface and an abstract class?
The abstract class is have an instance method that implements on the default behavior. An interface can only declare constants and the instance method that cannot be implement default behavior, and all the methods that are implicitly abstract. An interface has public members and no implementation.
Okay. What will happen if a static modifier is removed from signature of main method?
The program throws no such method error at runtime.
Okay. So we have completed like half of our questions.
Yeah.
What is the default value of an object reference declared as an instance variable?
Null, unless it is defined explicitly.
So can a top level class be private or protected?
No, top level cannot be private or protected. It is either public or modifier. No modifier, I guess.
Okay. Why do we need a wrapper class?
You can pass them around the method parameters, whereas the method exceptions are an object. It provides the utility methods.
Okay, what is the difference between error and an exception?
An error is a irrecoverable condition occurring at runtime, such as the out-of-memory error. Exceptions are conditions that occur because of the bad input, etc. The file not found exception will be thrown if the specified file does not exist.
Okay, so is it necessary that each try block must be followed by a catch block?
It is not necessary that each try block must be followed by the catch block. It should be followed by either catch block or final block.
When we use, actually I discussed you right, the previous we used try and catch method. So in our programming language we used to use the try method first of all, try.
Okay.
Then I initialize with the try and I use the catch block because it shows me the exception.
Okay.
In the when I give the system.out.println of E, it will throws me an exception like null pointer exception, or else like when we enter the string values in the place of string, if we enter the numeric values, it also shows that the type of errors also it will show.
Okay.
But I never use the finally blocked everywhere. I use try and catch block a lot. Okay, when a thread is created and started, what is its initial state?
A thread is in the ready state as initial state after it is being created and started.
Okay. So where we go?
You will like to get me coffee?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sleepy.
You will be getting Coke. Is a Coke is
Coke is available, but I'm drowsy. That's why I'm asking you.
I'll try to get. Okay. What is a local class?
Local class is used to trailer program output to the convention of the particular geographical, political, and the cultural region.
Okay. So actually, like previously, we are discussing about our food and everything. So, what is your favorite restaurant in Hyderabad? So that you'll be visiting more and more places in BTech, or else no.
What's the favorite restaurant in BTech?
Mine or your? No.
You're asking me.
Yes.
What's my favorite restaurant in BTech?
Yes.
My favorite restaurant in BTech.
Where you travel with your girlfriends more?
Tiny. As you know,
it's opposite to our college.
Yeah. 1 month back only I went into that restaurant with my bestie.
Okay. I don't require that name and everything.
You know, I also not prefer to tell that name.
Okay.
I'm also hesitant to that name. And she's not a girlfriend, she's just a friend.
Okay. So what is local class?
Local class is used to trailer program output to the convention of the particular geographical, political, or cultural region.
Okay, so what are the synchronized methods and synchronized statements?
Synchronized methods are the methods that are used to control the access to the object. Synchronized statement can be executed after the thread has acquired the lock for the object or class, a reference in the synchronized statement.
There are many questions, man, actually. What is runtime polymorphism or dynamic method dispatch?
Of the runtime polymorphism or the dynamic dispatch of the process in which a call to the overriding method is resolved at runtime rather than the compile time. In this process, the overriding method is called through the reference variable of superclass.
What is dynamic binding? And that is the lead binding.
The binding refers to the link of the procedure call to the code to be executed in the response to the call. The dynamic binding means the code associated within the given procedure calls it on the known until the time of a call at runtime.
Okay. So you are very sleepy now.
Yeah, too much.
Too much. You know, man, you had not feel sleepy because this is very important for me. Can a constructor be inherited?
No, constructor cannot be inherited.
Okay, actually the constructor is nothing but a subclass, I think, right?
Yeah.
What are the advantages of array list over arrays?
Array list can grow dynamically, proofs and more powerful insertion and search mechanism than arrays.
Okay. Okay. So if you need to, how do you decide when to use array list and linked list? How do you decide when to use array list and a linked list?
Array list and linked list.
Yes.
If you need to frequently add on more elements from the middle of the list and only access the list elements sequentially, then the listed list should be used. If you need to support the random access without the insertion and removing the elements from the place other than the end, then the array list should be used.
What is a values collection view? What is a values collection view?
It is a collection written by the values method of mapping interface. It contains of all objects present as values in the map.
Okay. What is a dot operator? Okay, carry on.
Dot operator is used to access the instance variable and the methods of the class objects. It also used to access class and the sub packages of a from a package.
Okay. So where and how can you use a private constructor?
Private constructor is used if you don't want other classes to be initialize the object and to prevent subclassing. Sorry.
Okay. So what is typecasting?
Typecasting is reading a variable on the one type as through its another type.
Actually, we use typecasting to convert a variable to another type, as you said, and we use for mostly in Selenium. Actually, it is used for everything, but we use mostly in Android and Selenium.
Okay.
So, can you please describe the life cycle of a thread?
Newborn state, runnable state, running state, blocker state, dead state.
Oh, it's finally dead.
Yeah.
So, what is the difference between the double greater than and triple greater than operator?
The double greater operator carries the sign byte when shifting right, and the triple greater 0 fills the byte which have been shifted out. Which method of the component class is used to set the position of the size of component?
Okay. So, what is the range of the short type?
Okay.
It's
The
okay.
range of the short type is 2 is to 15, 2 is to 15 minus 1.
Okay. What is the immediate superclass of menu item?
Superclass of
Menu. Yeah.
Menu. Okay. Menu item class.
Yes. Does Java allows default arguments?
No, Java does not allow the default arguments.
Which number is denoted by leading 0 in Java?
The octal numbers are denoted by leading 0 in Java.
Example 06, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So, which number is denoted by leading 0x or 0 small x or a 0 capital X in Java?
Hexadecimal numbers are denoted by leading the 0 small x and 0 capital X in Java. Example 0xf.
Okay.
0xf capital.
Break statement can be used as labels in Java.
Yes, an example can be used to break one.
Okay. And where import statement is used in Java?
The import statement is allowed at the beginning of the program, file, other package statement.
Explain suspended method under thread class.
It is used to pause or temporarily stop the execution of the thread. Explain a. Okay, sorry.
Okay, carry on. Just okay. So, Okay. Explain is other method under thread class.
It is used to find out whether the thread is still running or not.
Okay. What is current thread method?
It is a public static method used to obtain a reference to the current thread.
Okay. Explain main thread under thread class execution.
The main thread is created automatically and it's beginning to execute immediately when the program starts. Its thread from all the other child threads originates.
Okay. So are you hungry, Pramod?
No, I'm not. I just have my food.
You have your food, okay, but we are getting your food actually.
Thank you.
So, life cycle of an applet includes which steps?
Initialization, starting, stopping, destroying, and painting.
So, like, why is the role of int method under applet? Why is the role of int method under applets?
It initializes the applet and the first method to be called.
So, like, which method is called by applet class to be loaded as an image?
Get image, URL object, file name is used for this purpose.
Define code as an attribute of applet.
It is used to specify the name of applet class.
Define canvas.
It is a simply drawing surface which are used for the painting images to perform other graphical operations.
Define network programming.
It refers to the written programs that execute across the multiple devices, computers, in which the devices are allowed to connect to each other using the network.
Okay. What is an socket?
The socket is used to provide the communications mechanism between the two computers using the TPC, a client program. Create sockets on its end of the communication attempts to connect that socket to the server.
Actually, when we are discussing about the socket, there is a website called as socket.io.
Okay.
.io is nothing but it's for programmers. So the socket.io we use for chatting purposes actually, like communications, like as you said, like communications for one person to another person, like that we use in general. Okay. So advantage, and it is of course it's absolutely for free. And advantages of Java sockets.
Okay. Advantages of Java sockets are flexibility, sufficient. The efficient socket-based programming can be easily implemented for the general communications. It causes a low network traffic.
Okay. So, what are the disadvantages of Java sockets?
The socket-based communications allows to only the send packages of the raw data between the applications, both the client side and the server side, to provide the mechanism to make and the data useful in any way.
Which class is used by server applications to maintain a port and listen for client requests?
Java.NET server socket class is used by the server applications to obtain by port and listen to the client request. Actually, it's related to kind of some of the incident I remembered by reading this.
What incident did you remember?
So when I was in the talent sprint, the server socket was discussed. Server socket class was going on.
Okay.
So at the time, the funny communication has gone through. That's why I got remembered to do.
Okay. So which class? Okay. So why generics are used in Java?
Generics used to provide the compile time by type safely that allows the programmers to catch invalid types at the compile time. Java generics method and the generic class enables programmers to specify with a single method declaration a set of related methods, or a single class declaration a set of related types.
Okay. So what environment variables do I need? So my machine in the sense of my laptop, in order to be able to run the Java programming.
The class path and the path are the two variables.
So when I was learning in my first year of my BTech, second year of my BTech,
okay,
the first Java class, when we have a first Java class, the setting of the class path is very hectic task for me in my machine actually at that time.
Okay.
But now it's easy. In a day I can use hundreds of class paths. No. So is there any need to import java.lang package?
No, there is no need to import the Java package. Import Java package. It's defaultly loaded by the internally by JVM, Java Virtual Machine.
Okay. What is the nested top level class?
It's a class declared within the class and specifies the static modifier and the compiler treats the class just like any other top level class. Nested top levels class is an inner class.
What is externalizable interface?
The externalizable interface contains two methods, read external and the write external. These methods give you to control over the serialization mechanism.
If system.exit method is written at the end of the try block, will the final block still execute?
No, in this case, the final block will not execute because when you say the system exits and the control immediately goes out of the program, this finally never executes.
Okay, what is daemon thread?
The Daemon thread is a low priority thread which runs intermittently in the background doing the garbage collection operations with the Java runtime machine, that's it.
Okay. My machine is getting heat, I don't think so. But okay. Which method must be implemented by all threads?
All tasks must be implemented by the run method, I guess.
Okay. What is Georgian calendar class?
The Georgian calendar class provides all the traditional Western calendars.
Okay. What is the simple time zone class?
Simple time zone class provides the support of the Georgian calendar.
Yeah. Actually, we used in one of my interviews the Georgian calendar.
Okay.
Cool. What's the difference between the size and the capacity of a vector?
The size is the number of elements actually stored in the vector, while capacity is the maximum number of elements it can be stored in an instance of time.
Okay. So, can a vector contain heterogeneous objects?
Yes, a vector contains the heterogeneous objects because of the vector stores every time the terms of the objects.
Let's speak loud. Okay. So, what is an enumeration?
An enumeration is an interface containing the methods for the accessing of the underlying data structures from which enumerations is obtained. It allows sequentially access to all the elements stored in the collection.
What is different between path and the class path?
Class and the class path are the operations of the level, environment and variables. The path is defined by the system find executables, .exe files, and the class path is used to specify all the locations of the .class files.
Okay. So, actually when we use this .exe files we used to use in Windows.
Okay.
The first and foremost .exe files I have seen is in YCT game.
Okay.
YCT.exe.
Yeah.
So that is the extension file of Windows, but now it is like in Ubuntu or in the Fedora it's very different. Like we use Linux based operating system. So one small good news is that we completed successfully 1 hour. So
it's a big time for me.
But the time was passed very soon. What do you think, Pramod?
Yeah, so far.
Yeah. So actually it's like okay fine. So can a class we will take
when I get the break?
When you get the?
Can I expect when I will get the break?
After 2 hours, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Can a class declared as a private can be accessed outside of its package?
No, it's not possible to access the outside its package.
What are the restrictions imposed on a static method or static block of code?
A static method should not refer to the instance variable without creating an instance and cannot use this operator to refer the instance.
Can an interface extend another interface?
Yes, an interface can inherit another interface. For that matter, an interface can extend more than interface.
Okay. So, which object-oriented concept is achieved by using overloading and overriding?
Polymorphism.
Okay. What is an object lock and which object have locks?
An object lock is a mechanism that is used to multiple threads and often synchronized access to that object. This thread may execute a synchronized methods of the objects only after it has acquired the object's lock.
Okay. So, what is downcasting?
It is a casting that generally to more specific type casting down the hierarchy.
Okay. So, what are the order of precedence and associative and how they are used?
The order of precedence determines the order in which the operators are evaluated in the expressions associatively determines whether an expression is evaluated right to left to right or right to left.
So if a method is declared as a protected, where may be the method be accessed?
Protected may only be accessed by the class or interface of the same object, same packages of the subclass of the class in which it is declared.
What is the difference between inner class and extra class?
When a class is defined within a scope of the another class, then it comes the inner class with the access modifier. The inner class is static, then it becomes a nested class.
What restrictions are placed on method overriding?
The method overriding is must have the same name, argument list, and the return types. And the overriding methods may not limit the access of the methods which overrides.
What is constructor, chaining, and how it is achieved in Java?
The child object constructor always first needs to construct its parents. In Java, it's done via implicit call. The no argues constructor as the first statement.
So, can a double value be cached to a byte?
Yes, you can write to the cast.
Okay. So, we completed some set of questions actually. How does a try statement determines which catch clause should be used to handle an exception?
When an exception is thrown within the body of the try statement, the catch clause of the try statements is examined in the order in which they appear. The first catch clause that is capable of handling the exception executed. The remaining catch clause are ignored.
Okay. What will be the default value of all elements of an array defined as an instance variable?
If the array is an array of the primary types, that is then all the elements of the array will be initialized to a default value of the corresponding to the primary type.
So, Temur, I want you to what is can you please describe about your office in detail? I need 10 minutes of explanation about your office because you're working for, you have changed one office to another office and you have to tell me the environment of your office and all those things actually.
And the main condition is I cannot tell about the office in much depth because it's confidential.
Okay, so
I can tell you in an overview.
Yeah.
I can tell you in the overview.
Okay.
So far, my past company is a construction company. Actually, I got the job while I was in BTech only.
Okay.
I worked for it around 20 days, I guess. And after that, I left the company.
Okay.
And again, I got a call in December after left the company after 6 months of duration. I got a call from him to join the company, to join over the company, to work for some period of time. So, through his request, I have joined in this company. And after done the various multiple works in the field works and the designing works, designing in AutoCAD, designing of all the petrol bunks and the factory outlets and etc. kind of thing. I'll be doing the multitasking works over there, and I worked as a coordinator over there for a period of 2.5 months. And after that, I migrated to another company, which is called totally a graphic designer company. In that, it's a company based on totally on promotional videos. Comparatively, the old office to the new office, it is a drastic change for me. Even in the bosses also, there is a drastic changes. It's very cool, basically.
Who your boss is very cool?
Yeah, my boss is very cool.
So, and I thought to ask you one more question. So, what kind of work you work in now here in this company? What kind of work you work?
Again, it's very subjective and it's very confidential. I can tell you in the glance, we'll be working on the promotional videos which related to the Canada and US Buffalo region.
Okay, so yeah, fine, that's good. And so like we will come again towards the Java questions obviously. So I'm hungry right now, can I get some food? Vinay, so like so coming towards these questions, so what is a cookie?
Okay, a cookie is a small piece of text stored on the use of the computer by the browser or a specific domain, commonly used for the authentication, storing site preferences, and the service session identification.
Okay, so can we reduce the visibility of an overridden method?
Overridden method? No, I guess.
Okay, what is the difference between different types of inner classes?
Different types of inner classes are simple inner class, local inner class, anonymous inner class, and static nested inner class.
Difference between tree map and hash map.
There are the difference where that is stored in the memory. Tree map stores the keys in order, whereas the hash map stores the key value pairs randomly.
Okay, so what is the difference between the list and list, set, and map?
The list answer. The list members are stored in the sequence in the memory and can be accessed to the index. Set. There are no relevant of sequence on the index. Set doesn't contain the duplicates, whereas a multi-set can have the duplicates. Map contains the pair values.
Okay. When we zoom, we are getting out of the frame actually. So
Okay.
can you difference? What is the difference between a public, private, default, and protected?
Public, private, and no accessible outside object scope. Public is accessible anywhere. Default accessible from anywhere within the package. Protected accessible from the object and the subclass objects.
Okay, what is servlet chaining?
The multi-servlet serving this request in chain.
So Prema, are you comfortable here with AC everything, or else you need to decrease the temperature or something like that?
No, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, what are the wrapper classes available for primitive types?
The wrapper classes available for primitive data types: boolean, java.lang.boolean, byte, java.lang.byte, character, java.lang.character, double, java.lang.double, float, java.lang.float, int, java.lang.integer, long, java.lang.long, short, java.lang.short, void, java.lang.short.
These many classes are there.
Yeah, even I also don't know.
Even I didn't even study from my 10th, from my first class to this many classes. So, what are the concepts introduced with Java 5?
Generics, enums, autoboxing, annotations, and the static import.
Okay, this constructor creates the object.
New operator in Java creates the object. Constructor is the latest step in the object creation. Constructor's job is to initialize the members after the object that has reserved the memory for itself.
Okay, can the static method access instance variables?
Though the static methods can access the instance variable directly, they can access them from using the instance handler.
Okay, does Java supports multiple inheritance?
An interface which doesn't facilitate inheritance and hence implementation of multiple and interfaces doesn't make multiple and interface. Java does not support the multiple inheritance.
Okay, so we'll have some food in between.
Thank you.
I'll keep it here inside. So, can static method access the instance variable?
Though static method cannot access the instance variable directly, when they access them using the interface instance handler.
So, did you remember this fries from one?
Yeah.
We used to have many times this fries, and okay, can static method access instance variables? Sorry.
Though the static methods cannot access the instance variable directly, when they access them using the handler. And we are discussing about the fries.
Yeah, french fries. Sorry for that. Actually, how many times you have fries from us till now?
Actually, I'm not aware of the french fries. Because of you, because of your association, I got to know this french fries.
Oh, really? Thanks a lot.
I have not even gone to the McD.
Yeah, actually we are advertising these products here. I don't know. Okay, so does Java supports multiple inheritance?
Yeah, interface doesn't facilitate the inheritance and the implementation of multiple interfaces. Doesn't make multiple inheritance. Java does not support the multiple inheritance.
Difference between equals, double equals to, and dot equals to.
Equals is a member of object class which returns true if it is content of the object sum of class, whereas will equal to evaluate to see that the object's handlers on the left and the right are pointing to the same object in the memory.
Difference between checked and unchecked exceptions.
Checked exceptions are the exceptions for which the compiler throws an error if they are not checked, whereas unchecked exceptions are caught during runtime only and hence cannot be checked.
Okay, what is the final variable?
The final variable is a variable constant and that cannot be changed after initialization.
Okay. So, which class does not override the equals and hash code methods inheriting from them directly from the class of objects?
Java.lang.string buffer.
What is a final method?
It's a method which not overridden. Compiler throws an error if you try to overload a method which has been declared final in the parent class.
Okay. So, which interface does java.util.hashtable implements?
Java.util.map.
What is an iterator?
Iterator is an interface that provides a method to iterate over an collection.
Okay. So, which interfaces provides the capability to store objects using a key value pair?
Java.util.map.
Difference between hash map and hash table.
Hash table is synchronized whereas hash map is not. Hash map also null values whereas the hash table does not allow the null values.
And does Java allows overriding static methods?
No, the static methods belong to the class and not to the objects, and they belong to the class and hence doesn't fit properly for the polymorphic behavior.
When are static variables loaded in memory?
They are loaded at runtime when the respective classes is loaded.
Can we sterilize the static variable?
It's not sterilized, it's serialized, I guess.
Yeah, sorry, once again.
No, only object and its members are serialized. Static variables are shared variables and doesn't correspond to a specific object.
Okay. Can you tell me this program? Okay. What will this code print? String A equals to new string test and string B equal to new string test. If A equal to B, system.out.println true. Else system.out.println false.
False. Double equal to operations compares the object references A and B are the references to the different objects, hence the false.
Okay.
Dot equal methods is used to compare the string objects content.
There are two objects A and B with same hash code, and I am inserting two objects inside the hash map. Okay. So hash map dot put A comma A hash map dot put B comma B, where A dot hash code equal to B dot hash code. So now tell me how many types of objects are there inside the hash map?
There are only two different elements which within the same block within the same hash code, and the two elements have the some hash code. Then use of this Java uses to equals the further differentiation. So there anyone can be one or more objects depending on the other contents of the objects.
So difference between the long dot class and long dot type.
They both represent on the long primitive type. They are exactly the same.
Okay, does Java provide any default copy constructor?
No.
Okay, what are the common uses of this keyword in Java?
This keyword is a reference to the current object and can be used for the following: passing itself to the another method, reference to the instance variable when local variables have the same name, calling other constructor is a constructor chaining.
And what is the difference between thread and processors?
Oh my god. You asked a big question.
Okay. Can you answer me this?
Okay. When an OS wants to starting running program, it creates a new program. Once the process is that program that is currently executing, and every process has at least one thread running with it. A thread is a path of code execution of the program which has its own variables programming pointer to the current execution of being executed and the lifetime. When Java Virtual Machine is JVM and it is just VM, a started operating system, a new process is created. Within the process, many threads can be created. Consider an example. When you created a Microsoft Word in your OS, checked your task manager. When you see this running program is the process. Now, when you write something in open Word document, then performs more than once run at the same time, like it checks for the correct spellings. It formats the words you enter. So with the process word, due to different paths execution thread, all different works are done at the same time. With the process, every thread has independent path of execution, but there are many situations where two threads can be interface with each thread, then concerning and the deadlock comes in picture. 6 point. Like two processes communicate, EXU open an Word document file explorer on one Word document, you drag and drop another file from file exposure. Some way two threads can also communicate with each other, and communications to the two threads is relatively slow. 7 point. Every thread in the thread is created and controlled by the unique objective of Java.line. Thread class prior to the JDK 1.5, where we lack the support of the asynchronous programming in Java. So in that case, it will be considered that thread makes the runtime environment action synchronized, and it allows the different tasks to perform concurrently.
So, how can we run a Java program without making any object? That was a big long question, Daemon.
Yeah. By putting a code within it, either static method or a static block.
Explain multi-threading in Java.
Multi-threading provides better interaction. There's a use of the user distribution of tasks. Threads is as Java appears on runtime concurrently, so it provides the simulation activities. The processor runs each thread a short time and switches among the threads to stimulate the simultaneous execution and the content switching, and makes it appear each thread has its own processor. By using the feature, users can make it appears as if multitasking and other occurring simultaneously when in fact is running for the brief time before the context is switched and to the next thread. We can do the other things while waiting the slow I/O operations in java.io.p package. The class input stream has a method read and the blocks until the byte is read from the stream until the I/O exception is thrown. The thread that executes the method cannot do anything else while awaiting for the arrival of another byte on the streams.
Okay, so like it's almost okay. Fine, we'll start up 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
What do you want? What do you want? You want anything?
No.
Okay, can constructor be synchronized in Java?
No, Java does not allow the multi-thread access to objects. Constructor or synchronization are not even needed.
Okay. Can we create a null as a key for a map collection?
Yes, for hash table. Now a hash table implements the map interface.
What is the use of hash code in Java?
The hash code is for bucketing the hash implements like hash map, hash table, hash setup. The value of received hash code is used for the bucket system for storing elements. The bucket numbers is the address of the elements inside the set map. When you do contains will take the hash code of the elements when it took for the bucket where the hash code points as if one element is found in the same bucket. So then it uses the equals method to evaluate if the objects are equal, and then decide to contain true or false, or decide if the element could be added or in its set or not.
Okay. Why? 1 second. why threads block or enters to waiting state on IO.
Thread enters to the waiting state of or block or IO because of the other thread can be executed while IO operations are performed.
What are transient variables in Java?
Transient variable that cannot be serialized.
Okay, so what is the difference between int and sleep?
I hope you asked this question, Pass.
Okay, what is the difference between time slicing and primitive scheduling?
In preemptive scheduling, the highest priority of task continues the execution till it enters not in running state, and the higher priority task comes into existence. In time slicing, the task continues its execution for the predefining period of time and re-enters the pool of ready tasks.
What is initial state of a thread when it is created and started?
Read state.
What one should be taken care of when serialization the object?
No, one should make sure of that includes the objects that are also serializable. If any of the objects are not serializable, then it throws a non-serializable exception.
What is string pool?
String interns pool is a specific storage area of the Java heap. When its string is created and if the string is already exists in the pool, the reference of the existing string will be returned, and instead of the creating a new object of the returning its reference.
So, what is a string immutable in Java?
String immutable in Java consisting of three parts. String pool, three parts. First one is string pool. When a string is created and the string is already exists in the pool, the reference of the existing string will be returned, and instead of creating a new object, if the string is not immutable, changing the string with one reference will lead to the wrong value for the other references. Second one, to catch its hash code. If the string is not immutable, one can change its hash code and hence it cannot be fitted to catch. Security. Third one is security. String is widely used as a parameter for many Java classes. Example, network connections, opening files, and making the immutable. Making it immutable might process as a thread due to the interception by the other code segments.
So, what is the use of cookie and session, and what is the difference between them?
Cookie and session was used to store the user information. Cookie and stores the user information from the client side, and the session does it server side. Primarily, cookies and the sessions are used for the authentication and the user preferences and carrying information across the multiple requests. The session is meant for the same purpose as the cookie does. The session does not take on the server side and the cookie side on the client side. One more thing that it quite differentiates between the cookies and the session. The cookie is used only for storing the textual information. The session can be used for the both textual information and the objects.
So what is the different segments of memory?
The stat segments contains only the local variables, and the referring variables that holds the address of the object is that heap. The heap segment contains the created in the runtime only the plus in the object attributes instance variable. The code segment, the segment is the actual complicated Java bytecode besides when loaded.
So which memory segment loads the Java code?
The code segment.
Okay, which containers are used? A border layout or a default or their default layout?
The window, the frame, the dialog class are used to border layout as the default layout.
Okay. So can a lock be acquired on a class?
Yes, a lock can be acquired on a class. A lock can be acquired on a class object.
Okay. What state does a thread enter when it terminates its processing?
When a thread terminates its processing, it enters the dead state.
Okay. How many bits are used to represent Unicode? ASCII, UTF-16, and actually we discussed this one, right?
I hope you asked this question.
Yeah. What is an object lock and which object has locks?
An object's looks is a mechanism that is used to multiple threads to obtain the synchronized access to the object. A thread may execute a synchronized method of an object only after it is acquired to the object's looks. All objects or classes have a looks. The class looks it is acquired on the class's object.
So
can you please the screen once? I cannot observe the questions.
okay, fine. Can you please give me a second?
That's okay.
Actually, it's like not responsive side, so I was unable to. It's going outside. So for
That's
that
fine.
only I'm unable to. We'll see actually. Like, is there any process?
No, it's okay, no problem.
Sorry for that. Okay, so what is casting?
There are two types of casting. Casting between the primitive and numeric types and the casting between the object's references. Casting between the numeric types is used to convert the large values such as double values to smaller values such as the byte values. Casting between the object references is used to refer to an object by compatible classes, interface or array type references.
Okay. So what restrictions are placed on method overriding?
Overriding methods must have the same name, element, list and return type. The overriding method may not limit the cross of the method overridden. The overriding method may not throw any exception that may not thrown by the overriding method.
How does a try statement determine which catch clause should be used to handle an exception?
When an exception is thrown with the body of the try statement, the class case also the try statements are examined in the order in which they appear. The first catch clause that is capable of handling the exception is called executed. The remaining catch clause are ignored.
Describe what happens when an object is created in Java.
Memory is allocated from heap to hold an instant, all the instance of variables and implementation specific data of the object, and its subclass implementation specific data includes the pointers of the class and the methods and instance variables of the objects and are initialized to the default values. The constructor of the more desirable class is invoked. The first thing is the constructor. Does it call the constructor for it a superclass? The process continues until the constructor in the java.lang.object is called the class of java.lang. The object is base class for all the objects in the class. Before the body is the constructor executed, all the instance variables, initializers and initialization blocks are executed. Then the body of the constructor is executed. Thus the constructor for the base class completes first, and the constructor for the most visible class completes last.
So actually Pramod, now we completed around 1.5 hours. I want your feedback. So how do you feel on this?
Yeah,
Is it very risky or else it is okay for you?
it's not risky, it's not okay also. It's not risky or it's not bad, it's neutral for me.
It's neutral. Is it boring or else it's something like
Sitting for the long period of time kind of
I ordered you the coffee, it will be coming sure.
no, coffee is not the matter, but the time is fine.
So actually for me it's my personal opinion is what like I'm very enthusiastic about this.
Yeah, even though because the main thing is I woke up at 5 o'clock early in the morning and I was rushed to the office and I will be working over there for a period of 6 hours over there.
Yes. Sir.
And I've been traveling, so that's why the reason I'm so tired and drowsy.
Yeah, I can understand your situation, but sorry for that. But for me, it's like the time is passing very fast because it's almost 1.5 hours we started.
In my aspect, the time is going very slow.
Seriously? So should I change the set of questions for you or else?
Yeah, change the set of questions.
Like something like we will see actually. We'll so in the meantime, I'll change the set of questions. In the meantime, I want you to describe about your famous festival of Christmas. Like how do you celebrate and everything. In the meantime, I'll try to change some questions for you.
Okay. Christmas is one of the festival in the Christians as is celebrate every year on the 25th of December. As the Christmas celebrations will be starting at the 24th of November itself only. Pre-Christmas events will be starting at November 24th only. While at the time we will going for the carols, going around the homes and visiting the carols at the late nights and singing songs and giving the messages over there. After some period of time, we will be conducting the pre-Christmas events, which will be conducted for the youth and the elderly people. And after that, we will be having the Christmas Day and the regular prayers and messages in our churches. And after that, we will be having the Boxing Day, which is consisting of gift boxes. We will be getting the gift boxes from the church itself.
That is what you celebrate. Actually, when I was in my schooling, they used to be giving me the cakes, like cakes for that, and we used to purchase a gifts from that. What is that, man? Xmas.
Xmas.
Yeah. So we used to get gifts from them, and that's the thing actually we used to celebrate and like that. And now I'll ask you some of the questions of your favorite topic, where you will be watching your. Like cricket is your favorite topic, I think, in the sports.
One of my favorite.
Yeah, one of your favorite. So I'll ask some couple of questions from this, not all the questions, and I'll change the topic again. Okay. So, which part of England is called the cradle of the cricket?
Board half penny down where the Hambledon club played.
Okay. What is the first widely accepted laws of cricket brought out?
1744.
Okay, so which measurement in cricket has remained unchanged since 1744?
The length of the pitch is 22 yards.
Till 1889, how many balls an over used to be bowled?
Four
Okay.
balls.
In which country was an 8-ball over worked is still lately?
Australia.
I have this big questions. You have one more answer, huh? So, so what was the color of the ball used in earlier days of women cricket in England?
Blue.
We use white actually. We use white.
We use white for the test matches. We use white and for the. For the test matches we use red color and regular matches we use white.
And for the next record we use red ball. Okay, for the highest catch.
Okay. Sure.
Which was to be attended by you only. Okay, so get ready with your go for gym and everything. Okay, in which English country and when was a white ball used for playing during the day?
1936.
When was overarm bowling accepted as legal?
1845. Sorry, 1864.
Who was the first bowler to bowl overarm?
Edward Wilster.
Okay, what are ashes?
There are the ashes of the balls burned and kept in the small wax and turned on an urn. The term become in 1882 when the Australia beat England on the later home ground. An arbitrary in the Sporting Times Mount defeating mentioning that the body will be creamed and the ashes taken to Australia when the England beat Australia 2-1 in Australia. A group of women presented the ashes to England Captain Hong and Heath. They were till lately believed to be the ashes of ball. Now there is doubt. Some consider them to be the ashes of the ball.
Okay. So, do the ashes really exist? If so, where?
Yes, the Cricket of Memorial Gallery of Lord's, London.
Okay. What is an hat trick?
The bowler taking 3 wickets of 3 consecutive balls.
Unfortunately, in this IPL we don't find any hat trick, I think, right? 2019 IPL.
Yeah, we did not find any hat trick balls, but it's a try to attempt I have seen the 2 consecutive balls of 2 wickets, but I haven't seen the 3rd ball of getting wicket.
Yes. Why is such a feat so called?
Because of the earlier days custom of presenting the bowler of the hat.
When was this first done?
1858.
Okay. When and where was the first test played?
Melbourne, 1877.
What is the earliest available record of cricket having been played in India?
1721 at Cambay, Western India.
Which is the oldest cricket club in the world?
MCCA, Marylebone Cricket Club, London.
And the second oldest?
Calicut Cricket Club.
Oh,
This is in India.
In India, yeah. So, who was the first to have scored a century on Indian soil?
The Robert Vanster in Calicut for the old Ecotians versus the rest of Calicut.
Which was the first purely Indian cricket club formed in India?
Orient Club, Bombay, 1848 by the Parsis.
Okay, so which well-known cricket club was financed by Tatas and Vadias?
Young Zoroastrians, Bombay.
Okay, so when and where was the first Hindu cricket club was formed?
Bombay, 1866 Union Cricket Club.
And when did the Muslim form their first club?
Mohammedans Cricket Club in 1883.
Which Indian team was first to tour abroad?
Passes to England in 1886.
Which was the first team to tour India?
Jeff Vernon's team from England, 1889 90 to 90.
Okay, so let us all 25 questions is completed. So let us change the topic towards our topic.
Okay.
So now till now we discussed about some part of cricket, and now we'll be discussing again on the Java. So like changing the topics is very okay, but yeah, I can understand. And what is the difference between string buffer and string class?
String buffer is implementing an immutable sequence of the characters. The string buffer is like the string but can be modified at a point of time when it contains some particular sequence of the characters, but in the length of the contents of sequence can be changed through the certain methods called the certain classes represent the character strings. All the string literates in Java programs such as ABC are constant and implemented such as instance of this class. The values cannot be changed after they are created.
Describe in general how Java what is RMI?
RMI stands for the remote method invocation. Traditionally, approaches to executing code on the other machines across the network have been confusing as well as tedious and error prone to implement. The nicest way to think about this problem is that object happens to live on another machine and that you need to send a message and to remote object and get a result as if the object lived on your local machine. The simplification is exactly what Java remote method invocation RMI allows you to do.
Okay. What is JDBC? Describe the steps needed to execute a SQL query using JDBC.
JDBC is a pure Java API and used to execute the SQL statements. It provides a set of classes and interfaces that can be used for the developers to write the database application. The steps need to execute SQL query using JDBC. Open a connection to the database, execute SQL statements, process in the results, closing the connection to the database.
Okay. The steps. Okay. Sorry. Are constructor inherited? Can a subclass call the parent class constructor?
Yes, cannot inherit a constructor. That is, you cannot create an instance of the substance of a subclass using a constructor of one of its subclass. The main reason is because of you probably don't want to override the superclass's constructor, which would be possible, which is inherited by giving the developer the ability to override a superclass constructor. You could erode the encapsulation ability of the language.
So, what is a JSON?
JSON is a JavaScript object notation primarily used for the client server or the server communication. It is much lighter and the readable alternative to XML. JSON is a language independent and easily parseable in all the programming languages.
Okay. So, what is the role of a JSON string file?
JSON string turns an object into a JSON text and stores that JSON text is a string. So we stringly about the notation it will become.
Okay. So actually, the JSON, it's a JavaScript object notation actually used in our company, and the main use of the JSON is when you upload some code or when you store the data in terms of table like SQL structured query language, then you will be getting like the number of writes and reads per minute are more. So the cost is also more. But when we use JSON, the number of writes and reads are very less. So we use JSON actually in our company. And like when were the enums introduced in Java?
Yes, they are introduced with Java 5.
Okay. Which functions is used to convert a JSON into an object?
Eval.
Okay. Which data types are supported by JSON?
Number, string, boolean, array, object and null.
Okay. What are the benefits of JSON over XML?
Lighter and faster than XML, as on the wire data format, object representation and the information as presented in the object notations and hence better understandable, easy to parse, and the object representation information is presented to the object notation and hence understandable, easy to parse, and the conversion of the object's information inception support multiple data types. JSON supports the string and the numbers array and the boolean, whereas the XML data are all strings.
Okay. So what are the methods of object class?
Clone creates and returns of a copy of this object. Equals indicates whether the sum of the objects are equal to this one. Finalize called the garbage collector on the object when the garbage collection determines that there are more reference to that object. Get class returns to the runtime of the class object. Hash code returns to the hash code value of that object. ToString returns the string representation of the object. Notify or wait play part synchronizing the activities of independently running threads in the program.
Explain JMS.
The JMS provides high performance asynchronizing messages. It enables Java EE application to communicate with the non-Java systems on top of the various transports.
So explain explain EJB Enterprise Java Beans.
EJB provides a mechanism that is easy for the Java. Okay. EJB provides a mechanism that is easy for the Java developer used to advance the features of the components such as the remotes, methods, innovation, RMI, object relation mapping, that is saving the objects to relation database, and the distribute transaction across the multiple data sources.
So what is MVC's MVC? Which MVC is Struts to based on?
MVC2.
Okay. So what is an API?
API is a kind of technical contract which defines functionally that its two parties must provide the service provider, often called the implementation, and that implementation application and API simplifies the defined services to the service provider. The implementation makes it available to the applications.
Okay, what is an URL?
URL is a uniform resource loader which representation of HTTP address.
Okay, explain the features of Struts 2.
It's an action based MVC based on the framework which helped adopt MVC2. Struts to pull in the MVC or MVC2 framework where the action takes the role of model rather than the controller. The pull concept means view ability to that pull data from the action rather than having a separate model object available. The model view controller pattern in the struts is implemented with the 5 core components action interpreters, value stack, OGNL, results type and the results view technologies, XML configuration as well as annotations option available. Pojo is based on actions available, and we can write test cases easily. Integration with the Sphinx types and OGNL based exception language. Team based tag libraries integrated with the stuck tags as well as the support of the eject tags. Then have the various views on the options of the JSP and the velocity of the free makers. We can embedded plugin through which we can modify and extend the framework's features.
Okay. What is HTTP?
Hypertext Transfer Protocol is the internet protocol for the transmitting hypertext text with metadata over internet.
What is content negotiation?
Suppose we want to visit a site for the information. Information can be represented as in different languages like English, German, or may be other, and the other formats of the representation can also differ from the HTML to PDF or PDF to plain text. In this case, when a client makes a HTTP request to server, client can also specify to media types. Here, client can specify what it can accept back from the host, and the basis of the availability the host will return to the client. This is a content negotiation because the client and the service negotiation of the language.
So, is Tomcat is an application or a web server?
Application server.
So, is Apache is an application or a web server?
Web server.
So, what are the default or implicitly assigned values of for data types in Java?
Boolean, false, byte, short, int, long, char, float, double, or any double object references.
And promote, like we'll complete till 100 these questions, and then later on again we'll move to the cricket questions.
Okay.
And how was your mood now? Actually, like, is it still
in?
So what do you want? Do you want anything like coffee or?
No.
I just
No, actually I'm not able to come fix it up.
Unable to settle down.
Oh, that's the reason.
Why you are getting very sleep?
And sleep and
so
I'm moody also. Kind of.
You want to take a break, else?
We'll take a break at 6 o'clock.
For 5 minutes.
This is up to which minutes? My task.
Here is up to 11 o'clock. Okay, so
Please consider me to early as possible because I can't stay here. Presently, I'm not able to sit in a mood to sit.
We'll take 5 minutes break after 1.5 hours.
Okay, we'll discuss it later in the 5 minutes.
Okay, so what's the difference between encapsulation and abstraction?
Encapsulation and abstraction. Abstraction involves solves the problem at design level, while encapsulation solves the problem at implementation level. Abstraction is used for the hiding unwanted data and giving the relevant and data encapsulation, meanwhile hiding the code and data into a single unit to protect the data from outside world. Abstraction lets you focus on what the object does, while the encapsulation means the hiding internal details of the mechanics of how long the object does come in. How long is this question going on? Up to which time? May know.
How much time you require that much?
No. Okay.
Java questions or else?
Java questions. Java and totally my aspect.
In your aspect, we prepared more than 1,000 questions.
For to kill me.
So
prepare my coffin box.
So can I import some packages class twice? Will the JVM load the packages twice at runtime?
One can import the Java packages or some class multiple times. Neither compiler or JVM complains or complain about it, and the JVM will internally load the class only one matter how many times we import the same class.
So explain static blocks in Java.
The static initialization block is a normal block of code encloses the brackets and preceded by the static keyword. Here's an example. static, whatever the code is needed for the initialization goes there.
Which access specifier can be used with the class?
For a top level class, we can use only public and the default. We can use the private in the inner class.
Okay. So explain annotations.
Annotations is a form of metadata provided. The data about a program is not that a part of a program itself. Annotation having no direct effect on the program of the code. The annotations have the number of users among them. Information for the computer. Annotations can be used by the computer and to detect errors, whether suppresses warnings, compile time and the deployment time processing. Software tools can process the annotations information to generate code, XML files and so forth. Runtime processing. Some annotations are available to be examined at runtime.
So what are the meta annotations?
Don't request, send me as soon as possible. I'm not okay. Annotations is that apply to the other annotations as the meta annotations.
No, you have to be first in for more hours.
Okay. I'm not able to in the mood to kind of. I'll explain you later. Continue. I'm fickle-minded. I'm sorry for that. Continue.
How to display and set the path in Unix?
To display the current class path variable, use this comments in the Unix bone cell echo class path. To delete the current contents in the class path variable in the Unix unset class path and the export class path. To set the class path variable, Unix class path home/your/java classes export class path.
Difference between abstract and concrete class.
The abstract classes are only meant by the subclassed and not meant by the initialized, whereas the concrete classes are meant by the initialized.
Difference between a vector and array list.
Vectors are synchronized, whereas the arrays list are not.
Different ways of implementing threads in Java.
Threads in Java can implement either in the extending thread of classes or implementing the runnable interfaces.
What is volatile keyword used for?
The volatile is a declaration of that variable can be accessed by the multiple threads and hence shouldn't be attached. I think this question is completed. Okay.
What is the use of transient keyword?
It in Java used to indicate that a field used to be not serialized.
What is final variable?
Final variable is constant variable. Variable value can't be changed for instantaneous.
What is final method?
A method cannot be overridden in the subclass.
What is a final class?
Class cannot be subclassed.
Okay. So let's check the question.
Okay, your wish.
Okay. So which Indian team defeated the first 3 tournaments from England?
Passes.
Okay. Which was the first representative not belonging to any one of the community Indian team to England?
Maharaja of Patiala, 1911 Indian team.
When was the board of control for cricket in India was set up?
1927.
When was the National Cricket Championship for Ranji Trophy started?
1934.
What were the presidency matches?
Played between the presidency Europeans against Parsis from 1892 onwards. The Hindus joined the team in the 1907, Muslims as a fourth in 1912 and the rest in 1937.
So how long you want to continue?
No, yours. I mean, what aspect?
What were the pentagulars?
1937 to 1944, the erstwhile presidents' matches were on the pentagulars.
Okay. Which team lost by innings despite one of its batsmen scoring a triple century in pentagulars?
The rest beaten by the Hindus in 1943. Harlot Loward played in
the quadrangulars Is it true or false?
True, in 1936.
Okay. When did India became a member of ICC?
1926, before the formation of BCCI. Wow.
When did MCC first tour in India?
1926 to 1927.
When did the India play its first test match earlier?
Lord's London in 1932.
Who captained India? Who captained India in this test?
C.K. Naidu.
Who were the captain and vice captain of India in this tour?
The Maharaja of the Porbandar and the Prince of Limbi.
Who donated Ranji Trophy?
Maharaja of Patiala.
What was the cost of this trophy?
500 euros.
When and where the first Ranji Trophy match played?
In Madras on 4th November 1994.
That's in Chennai now.
Yeah.
So, which were the two teams and who won?
Madras versus Mysore. Madras won.
Okay. So, who bowled the first ball and to whom?
MJ Golpan to N. Cortes.
So, how many teams took the part in the championship in inaugural year?
15.
When and where the first test played in Indian soil?
1933, 1934 in the Bombay against England.
I think it's a month of December like that.
Yeah.
31st, so there were 2 years I think. So, in cricket history, when was the team test match first used?
In 1884 in Melbourne, Australia by an Australian newspaper, Melbourne Argus.
Who wrote the history of cricket?
H.S. Altum.
Okay. When was the Imperial Cricket Conference formed?
1909.
When did India become its member?
1926.
Imperial Cricket Conference. It's ICC. Why don't you tell me the form of ICC actually?
No, it's not. Imperial Cricket Council is not ICC.
It's International Cricket Council.
It's International Cricket Council.
Okay.
And
What is
later on it has changed to International Cricket Council.
Yeah. What is this body now called?
Okay.
Just now we discussed that one.
Okay.
Can you tell me answer?
International Cricket Conference.
Okay. So now we'll complete the 25 questions and so we are telling something from us. Can you please?
Huh? No.
ఉంటుంది కదా ఇంటర్వ్యూ ఉంటుంది ప్లీజ్ 2 hours కంప్లీట్ అయింది ఇంకా 4 hours ఉంది సరేనా ఇంకో 1 hour అయితే 5 minutes బ్రేక్ ఇస్తాను
ఓకే ఇవ్వండి లేకపోతున్నాం
వాట్ ఈస్ ఇమ్యూటబుల్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్
object that can be changed after initialization.
Okay, what is immutable class?
The class is using is only immutable objects that can be changed after initialization. Objects can be created.
Does declaring an object final makes it immutable?
Only declaring primitive types as a final makes them immutable. Making objects final means that the object's handler cannot be used to target some other objects, but its objects still mutable.
Okay. So
After 6 also I am having the Java questions.
Okay, change it.
Can you pass it on to other person, please?
Okay. Give me like I'll change after 6. Okay, for you. After
Place me other person in place of me. After 6. Ask the questions. Please.
Difference between object instantiation and construction.
Though it often confused with each other, object creation, instantaneous and instruction are the different things in Java. Construction flows object creation. Object creation is the process to create the object in the memory and the returning to handle. Java provides the new keyword to object creation. Initialization is a process of settling the initial and the default values to the members. Constructor is used for this process. If you don't provide any constructor, Java provides one default implementation to set default values according to the members' data types.
Can we override the static methods?
No, static methods belong to the class and not the objects. They belong to the class and hence don't fit properly for the polymorphic behavior. The static method is not associated with any instance of the class. So the concept of the overriding for the runtime polymorphism using the static methods is not applicable.
Can we access the instance variables within the static methods?
Yes, we can access them directly, but we can access them using the object reference. Static methods belong to the class and the object, whereas the non-static members are tried to instance. Accessing a instance variable without the instance handler will be in ambiguity regarding which the instance the method is referring to, and hence it propagated.
Can we reduce the visibility of inherited or overwritten method?
No.
Can you? Is it boring for you? Is it boring questions for you?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
No, questions is not boring. Even చెప్పాకదా as I discussed before on this something.
Okay. So can you please give me an example of checked and unchecked exception? One second, sorry for that.
Yeah. Checked and unchecked exceptions. Class not found exception is an checked exception, whereas no class def found error is an unchecked exception.
Name few Java exceptions.
Index out of bound, no class def found, out of memory, illegal argument.
Which of the following is tightly bound? Inheritance or composition?
Inheritance.
How can we make sure that a code segment gets executed even in the case of uncast exception?
By putting it in within the family.
Finally.
Sorry. Finally.
It's okay. They explain the use of native keyword.
The use of the methods of the declaration to specify that the method is not implemented in the same Java source file, but rather in the other language.
So, Pramod, I need you to discuss about your passions and things actually.
Passions?
What is your passion actually?
In what aspect you are asking?
Passion, bro. It's like anything. Like I was very passionate towards my YouTube, like that.
Since presently I don't have any passions, but in the past I used to have the passion of playing badminton.
Okay.
But so far it has been cherished.
It is been
Cherished.
okay. So
Cherished by the sequences, the consequences, or myself I cherished, I don't know. But it has been cherished.
but now you are very like devotional way.
Might be.
And yeah. Explain the use of native keyword.
Use of the access members. I didn't get you. What's the question?
Explain the use of native keyword.
Okay. Use in method declaration to specify the method that is not implemented in the same source Java, in the same source file, but rather other languages.
Okay. What is super used for?
Used to access members of the base class.
What is this keyword used for?
Used to represent an instance of the class in which it appears.
Difference between boolean, small letter boolean and boolean.
Boolean is a primitive data type where a boolean is a class.
Okay, what is a finalized method?
Finalized method is called as just before an object is destroyed.
What are marker interfaces? Name a few Java marker interfaces.
There are interfaces which have no declared methods. Seriable and the clonable are the marker interfaces.
I'll change your questions after 5 o'clock, okay?
Okay.
This is one word. Is runnable a marker interface?
No, it is a run is a method declared.
Difference between process and thread.
Process is a program is execution, whereas a thread is a separate path of execution in the program.
What is a deadlock?
When two threads are waiting each other and it can't proceed, the program said to be deadlock.
Explain autoboxing.
Autoboxing is an automatic conversion of the Java compiler makes between the primitive types and their corresponding objects wrapper class.
What is an enum type?
Enum type is called as the enumerators so far.
Okay.
Enum type is a special data types that enables a variable to be set of predefined constants.
So actually I asked what is wrapper class. Can you explain what are the primitive wrapper class?
Okay, wrapper class is a class of wraps or encapsulate the functionality of the another class or the component. The wrapper class that wraps or encapsulates the primitive data type is called the primitive wrapper class.
Okay. What design pattern wrapper class implements?
Adapter
Okay. What is import used for?
enables the program to abbreviate the names of the classes defined in a package.
Okay. Can you please describe the different types of memory used by JVM?
Class, heap, stack, register and the native method stack.
What is a class loader? What are the different class loaders used by JVM?
The part of JVM which is used for the class loads class and interfaces, bootstraps, extension and the systems are the class loaders used by the JVM.
What is can we declare interface methods as private?
No.
What is a static import?
By static import, we can access the methods members of the class directly without prefixing it with a named class.
Difference between string buffer and string builder.
String buffer is a synchronizing whereas string builder is not.
Difference between map and hash map.
Map is an interface where hash map is the concert class.
Okay, what is a property class?
The properties of the class is a substance of the hash table that can be read from the return to a stream.
Okay, explain the scenarios to choose between string buffer, string builder and string buffer.
The object will not change in a scenario. Use the string because of the string objects is immutable. The object value cannot change and will be modified from a single and use a string builder because of the string builder is unsynchronized.
Okay, explain. Actually, we completed was.
Yeah.
So explain Java. What?
More one not to go.
No, more for us. Explain Java dot.
Excuse me, I'm not in the position to sit. Okay.
Java.lang.out of memory error.
This error is thrown when Java virtual machine cannot allocate an object because it's out of memory, and more could be made available by the garbage collector.
Okay, can we have multiple servlets in a web application, and how can we do that?
Yes, making entities in the web XML.
Okay, how can we manage error messages in web application?
Within the message properties file.
Is JVM a compiler or interpreter?
Interpreter.
Difference between implicit and explicit typecasting?
An explicit conversation is where you use some syntax to tell the program to do a conversation, whereas in case of the implicit typecasting, that you need to provide the data type.
Okay, difference between load class and class dot for name.
Load class only the class but doesn't initializes the object, whereas the class for name initializes the object after loading it.
Okay, should we override finalize method?
Finalize is used by the Java for the garbage collection. It should not be done, as we should leave the garbage collection in Java itself.
Okay. Should we override? What is asset keyword used for?
Asset is used to make the assertion a statement in which the program believes is always true at the point program. The keyword is intended to aid the testing and the debugging.
Okay. Difference between factory and abstract factory design patterns.
The factory deals with the creation of the objects, delegating to the separate factory class, whereas the abstract factor patterns works around a super factory which creates the other factories.
Okay, so can you please tell the differences between factory and builder design pattern?
Builder design is an extension of the factory patterns, wherein the builder class builds a complex object in multiple steps.
Okay. Difference between proxy and adapter.
Adapter, the object has a different input than the real subjective, whereas the proxy object has the same input as the real subject. The proxy object is that such that it is placed in its place where the real subject is.
What is the difference between adapter and Fastcap?
The difference between the patterns only is the intent adapter used because of the objects is current from the cannot communicate, whereas in the facet through the objects cannot communicate. The facet object is placed between the client and the subject to simplify the interface.
Difference between builder and composite.
Builder is creationally designer pattern, whereas the composite is a structural designer pattern. The composite creates the parenting-child relations between you or objects and built, while the builder is used to create a group of the objects or predefined.
Explain example of chain of responsibility design pattern.
Exception handling through mechanism.
Okay, explain the observer design pattern.
Listeners,
difference between factory and strategy design pattern.
Factory is a creational design pattern, whereas the strategy behavior design pattern. Factory resolves around the creation of the objects at runtime, whereas the strategy and policy resolves around the decision of runtime.
Shall we use abstract class for interface in policy? Strategy design pattern.
Strategy deals only with decision making at runtime, so interfaces should be used.
Okay, which kind of memory you use for storing object member variables and function and local variables?
Local variables is stored in stack, whereas object variables are stored in heap.
Actually, when we do the Android programming, all the layouts will be present in a stack actually. Okay, why do the member variables have default values, whereas the local variables don't have any default values?
Okay, what is default construct? Okay, sorry. The member variables are loaded into a heap, so they initialize with the default values when the instance of class is created. In case of local variables, they are stored back until they are being used.
You can have a drink if you
No.
What is a default constructor?
No, the no argument constructor provides the Java compiler if no constructor is specified.
Will compiler creates a default no argument constructor if we specify the only multi-argument constructor?
No, compiler will create a default constructor only if we don't specify any constructor.
Can we overload constructor?
Yes.
What will happen if we make a constructor private?
We can't create the objects directly by invoking new operator.
How can we create objects if we make the constructor private?
We can do so through a static public member method or a static block.
What will happen if we remove the static keyword from the main method?
Program will compile but will give no such method error during the runtime.
Why Java don't use pointers?
Pointers are vulnerable and slight carelessness in the use of the may result in the memory problems, and hence Java instinctively manage their use.
Can we use both this last question? Can we use both this and super in constructor?
No, because of this, the super could be first statement.
Give me 1 second. Propagation.
Continue the questions, no problem. Not a problem. Time is getting wasted. Go on with it.
Yeah, 1 second. I'll just go on with that. Passes are okay. I'm unable to find. Give me after in the break. I'll see. Okay. So can we use? Okay. Do we need to import java.lang.package?
No, it's a load by default by the JVM.
Is it necessary that each can finally block be used without catch?
Yes, but you will follow the try block then.
What is exception propagation?
Passing the exception object to the calling method.
Difference between nested and the inner classes.
The inner classes are non-static nested classes.
What is a nested interface?
The nested interface declares inside a class or an interface. It is static by default.
What is an externalizable interface?
The externalizable interface is used to write a state of object into a byte stream in a compressed format.
Difference between serializable and externalizable interface.
Serializable is a maker interface, whereas externalizable is not. Externalizable is not.
What is deflection?
It is the process of examining modifying the runtime behavior of an object at runtime.
Okay. And can we initiate the object of derived class if parent constructor is protected?
No.
Can we declare an abstract method private?
No abstract methods can only be declared protected or public.
Okay. So what are the design considerations while making a choice between using interface and abstract class?
Keep it as an abstract class. It is a relationship that could be subset all of the functionalities. Keep it as an interface. It should do a relationship.
What is a config object?
The config object is an initialization of Java X.Servlet. Servlet configuration is a direct wrapper around the wrapper servlet configuration object for the generated servlet. This object allows the JPS programmers access to the servlet or JPS engine initialization parameters such as the path or the file location.
What is a page context object?
The page context object is an instance of the Java Servlet JPS page context object. The page context object is used to represent the entire JPS. The object stores a reference to the request and the responses object, and each request, the application, the configure session, and the out objects are derived by accessing the attributes of this object. The page contents object also contains information about the directives issued to the JPS page, including the buffering information, the error page URL, and the object scope, page scope.
What is suspended method used for?
The suspended method is used to suspend the execution of the thread for a period of time. When we then restart by the thread using resume method.
Difference between suspend and stop.
Suspend is used to suspend the thread, which when restarted by using the resume method. Stop is using to stop the thread. It can be restarted again.
Okay, so after 200 I've seen the question, I got the link. Okay, what are the benefits of using Spring Framework? Oh, okay. Actually, what is the difference?
Not a problem. Okay, not a problem. Spring enables. Can you repeat the question once?
I'll repeat it. What is the difference between collections class versus collection interface?
Not a problem with the previous question. I'll go in there.
Okay, what is the benefits of using Spring Framework?
Spring enables the developers to enable enterprises class applications using the PJOs. The benefits of using the PJOs in that need to EJB container product. Spring is organized in a modular fashion. Even though the number of packages and the classes are sustainable, you have to worry only about once. You need to or ignore the rest. Spring does not reinvent the wheel. Instead, it truly makes the use of some existing technologies like the several ORM frameworks, logging frameworks, JEE, Quarters, and the JDK times, and other view technologies. Testing an application written the Spring is simply, but environment depends on the code is moved into the framework. Furthermore, by using the Java Bean styles, PJOs, it becomes easier use to dependency injection for the injection test date. Spring Web Framework is well-designed Web MVC framework which provides a greatest alternative to the web frameworks such as Struts or the other engineered or less popular web frameworks. Spring provides convenient API to translate the technology specify exceptions thrown by the GDBC, Hibernate or the JDO. The examples to consistent and unchecked exceptions. Lightweight IOC containers need to tend to be lightweight, especially when compared to the EJB containers. For example, this is beneficial for the developing and deploying applications on the computer with a limited memory of the CPU sources. Spring is provided to consist of transactions management and the interface that can be scaled down to local transaction.
That's a very good answer.
Thank you.
What is the difference between collections classes versus collections interface?
Collection is a utility class having the static methods for doing operations on the objects of the class which implements the collection interface. For example, collection has the methods for finding the max element in the collection.
Okay. Difference between Java beans and Spring beans.
Java beans managed by the Spring IOC are called the Spring beans.
And what is the difference between system.console.write and system.out.println?
System console return the application is not run in the terminal through you handle. This is your own application. System console provides the method for reading the password without echoing characters. System.out and print. System.er error is used to default platform encoding while the console class output methods used to console encoding.
Okay. What are the various types of class loaders used to by JDK?
Bootstraps loads JDK internal classes, Java packages, extension, load jar files from JDK extension directory, usually lib or extension directory of the JRE system, load classes from the system class path.
You want anything to drink? Are you okay? Comfortable?
Okay, carry on.
Okay. So, how are the classes loaded by JVM?
Classes loaders are the hierarchical. The first very class is specially loaded with the help of the static main method declared in your class. All the subsequently loaders classes are loaded by the class which are already loading and the current and the running.
Difference between this is, I think you have learned this one, right?
Okay, continue. No problem.
Alisha, can you please explain the differences between C++ and Java?
Java does not support pointers. Java does not support multi-inheritance. Java does not support destructors, but rather adds a finalize method. Finalize methods are invoked by garbage collector prior to the reclaiming the memory occupied by the object which has finalized method. Java does not include the structures or the union because of the traditional data structures are implemented as an object-oriented framework. C++ compiled to machine language and the Java compiles to bytecode. In C++ program needs to worry about freaking the allocated memory when in Java garbage collector takes care of the unusual variables. Java is a platform independent language, but C++ depends on the operating systems. Java uses compiler and interpreted both in the C++. There is only compiler. C++ supports operating overloading, whereas Java doesn't. Internet support is built in Java but not in the C++. However, C++ has a support of socketing program which can be used. Java does not support the header file, including the library files, just like the C++. Java used to import to include the different classes method. There is no goto statement in Java. There is no scope resolution operator in Java. It has been using since qualifies classes with a namespace they came from. Java is passed by the values, whereas C++ uses both pass values by the pass of references. Java enums are produced instead of int values in C++. C++ program runs as a native executable machine code for the targets and hence more nearer to the hardware, whereas the Java program runs in the virtual machine. C++ was designed mainly for system programming, extended the C programming language, whereas the Java was created initially To support networking computing, C++ allows the low-level addressing of data. You can manipulate manipulate the machine addresses to look at anything you want. Java addresses is controlled C++ and several addressing operations star and whereas Java is only we can create the own packages, the Java set of classes, but not in C and C++.
Difference between static versus dynamic class loading.
Static loading, the classes are statically loaded with Java new operator. Dynamic class loading, the dynamic class loading is a technique for the programmatically invoking the functions of the class loader at a runtime. Classes for name, test class name.
Tell me something about buffer writer. What are the flush and close methods used for?
The buffer is a temporary storage area of data. The buffer writer is an output stream. Is that abstract class uses the buffer character output stream. The flush is used to clear all the data characters stored in the buffer and clear the buffer. Close is used to close the characters of output stream.
What is scanner class used for, and when was it introduced in Java?
Scanner class is introduced in Java 1.5 after reading the data stream from the input device. Previously, we used to write the code to read the input using data input stream. After reading the stream, we can convert into respective data type using the in.next as a string, in.nextInt as a string, as an integer, in.nextDouble as a double etc.
Why struct1 classes are not thread safe, whereas struct2 classes are thread safe?
Struct1's actions are singleton, so all threads operators on the single action objects and hence makes it thread unsafe. Strat2 actions are not singleton and a new action object copy is created each time the new action requested is made and hence is thread safe.
What are some Java related technologies used for distributed computing?
Sockets, RMI and EJB.
What's the purpose of marker interfaces?
They just tell the compiler that the objects of the class implementing the interfaces with no different defined methods need to be treated differently.
What is the difference between final, finally and finalized methods?
Final, a constant variable, restrict methods, overloading restricted class substances, subclassing. Finally, handling exception. The final blocking is an optional and providing a mechanism to clean up regardless of what happens within it. The try block use the final block to close files or to release or other systems resources like database connections and the statements etc. Finalize. The method helps to garbage collections. Method that invoked before an object that discarded by the garbage collector, allowing to clean up its state.
When do you get class cast exception?
As we only downcast class in the hierarchy, the class cast exception is thrown to indicate that the code has attempted the cast an object is a subclass of which it is not an substance or not an instance.
Okay, so we'll actually explain the thread states.
As runnable, waiting its turn to be picked for exception execution by the thread scheduler based on the thread priorities. Running, the processor is actively executing the thread code. It runs until it becomes blocked and voluntarily gives up its turn. Waiting, the thread its blocked state while it waits for some external processing such as file IO to finish. Sleeping, Java threads is forcibly to put sleep suspended with the thread sleep. They can be resumed using thread resume method. block on IO will move to runnable no IO condition after reading bytes data dot etc. exchanges. The block on synchronization will move to runnable when it is locked to acquire that the thread will finish the working.
What are strong, soft, weak and phantom references in Java?
A garbage collector won't remove a strong reference. A soft reference will only get removed if memory is low. The weak reference will get removed on the next garbage collection cycle. The phantom reference will be finalized, but the memory will not be reclaimed. Can be useful when you want to be notified that an object is about to be collected.
So, difference between yield and sleeping.
When a task invokes yield, it changes from running state to the runnable state. When a task invokes sleep, it changes from the running state to the waiting or the sleeping state.
What is a daemon thread given? Oh, 1 second. Okay. Daemon thread and give an example.
These are the threads that normally run at a low priority and providing the basic service to program and programs when activity on the machine is reduced. Garbage collector thread is Daemon thread.
Okay. What's the difference between AWT and swing?
Okay. Swing provides the both additionally components like JTable, JTree, etc. and added functionally to AWT replacement components. Swing components can change their appearances based on the current look and feel library that has been used. Swing components follow the mic MVC paradigm and thus provided as a more flexible UI. Swing provides extras of components such as icons and many components, decorative borders for the components, tools for the components, etc. Swing components are lightweight than AWT. Swing provides a built-in double buffering, which means an off-screen buffer is used during the drawing and the resulting bits are copied onto the screen. Swing provides the painting debugging supports when you build your own component.
So we'll change a set of questions as I said earlier.
Okay.
And here my question part is very big and your answer part is very less.
Okay.
So we have 10,000 general knowledge in questions and answers, so that you will be getting knowledge and me also will be getting knowledge. Okay. So these are the questions. And Carl and the Passion changed the band name to what?
Beach Boys.
How many rings on the Olympic flag?
5.
What color is vermilion a shade of?
Red.
King Joe ruled which country?
Albina.
So what color is pork's blood?
Green.
Where in your body is your patella? In your body is patella.
Knee. It's not kneecap. It's the kneecap.
Okay. And you take some coffee.
Thank you.
And who was the first man in space?
USA. Azarino.
Okay.
Yuri Gazirini.
Yeah. What would you think with a yash mark?
Where it's an Arab well.
Yeah. It's nice to hear. Who betrayed Jesus to the Romans?
Judah Iscariot.
Which animal lays eggs?
Duck beetle plate tubs.
On television, what was the flipper?
Dolphin.
Whose band was the Quarryman?
Can you repeat the question?
Whose band was the Quarryman?
Whose band were the Quarrymen? John Lennon.
Which was the most successful Grand National horse?
Red Rum.
Who started the $6 million man?
6 majors. League majors.
In the song, Waltzing Matilda, which is a jumback.
Sheep.
Who was Dan Dare's greatest enemy in the Eagle?
Macon.
What is Dick Grayson better known as?
Robin. Batman and the Robin.
Okay. What was given on the 4th day of Christmas?
Calling birds.
Did you give any time?
No, I'm not aware of it. I heard it first time.
What was Skippy on TV?
What was?
Skippy on TV.
The bush kangaroo.
Okay. What does a funambulist do?
Try rope walker.
Let me zoom the questions, please. What is the name of Dennis and the Minas dog?
Garnish. Gan.
What are the
Rancher.
Bactrians and dromedaries
Camels.
who played for this tune?
David Jackson.
Who was the king of Spain?
Benny Goodman.
Who was the first man to fly across the channel?
Louis Beltrod.
Who started a Rocky Balboa?
Sylvester Stallone.
In which work was the charge of light braid?
Freeman.
Who invented television?
John Locke Bride.
Who would use a machine niblick?
Golf Locke.
In the song Who Killed Cock Robin?
Sparrow.
What do deciduous trees do?
They lose their leaves in winter. Lost their leaves in winter.
In a golf, what names is given to number 3 wood?
Spoon.
If you have price, who would you consult?
Dentist. Its tooth decayed.
What the other name is Mellor's famously known by?
The lady chatler is low.
What did Jack Horner pull from his pie?
Plum.
How many feet is a phantom?
6.
Which film had song Springtime for Hitler?
Producer.
Name the legless fighter pilot of WW2.
Douglas Bader.
Okay. So what was the name of in Treasure Island?
Admiral Benthorpe.
Okay. What was the enriched vices better known as?
What was the?
Enriched vices better known as?
Harry Howdy.
Who sailed in Nina, Pitana and Santa Maria?
Christopher Columbus.
What this question is it easy for you?
Go.
Okay. So which leader died in Saint Helena?
Which leader?
He died in Saint Helena.
Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh, Napoleon Bonaparte. Who wrote Gone with the Wind?
Margaret Mitchell.
What does ring a roses refer to?
The Black Knight.
Okay. Whose nose grew when he told a lie?
Pinocchio.
Who has won the most Oscars?
Walt Disney.
Okay. What would a Scotsman do with a spritile?
Eat Product.
Which awards has the words for Waller on it?
Victoria's Cross.
So, if you had a pogonophobia, what would you be afraid of?
Beards.
Who would take silks as a part of their job?
Barrister.
Who won an Oscar for the African Queen?
Bogart.
Okay. Who sang the theme song in 9 to 5?
Dolly Parton.
What is the business terms? Is the IMF?
International Monetary Fund.
Okay. Ringo Starr narrates which children TV series?
Thomas and the Tank Engine.
Okay. Which country grows the most fruit?
China.
Which company is owned by Bill Gates?
Microsoft.
Okay. So, what would you do with a Maris Piper?
Maris Piper. Eat it and it's potato.
Okay. In Casablanca, what is the name of the nightclub?
Bricks.
What was the first James Bond book?
Casino Royale.
What kind of animal is Luchar?
Dog.
What is the currency of Australia?
Sicilian.
What is the Islamic equals to Red Cross?
Red Christian.
In Fable, who scolded a cow for 5 beans?
Jack.
How did Alfred Nobel make his money?
He invented dynamite.
Who was the first man to run a sub for minute mile?
Roger Bannister.
What are universe?
Monster. Mountains in Scotland.
Which car company makes the Cilicia?
Which?
Car company makes the Cilicia.
Republic of Ireland of Air.
Who discovered radium?
Who discovered?
Radium.
The Curious.
What does alopecia sufferer lack?
Hair.
Who painted the Heaven van?
John Stanley.
Please have it.
John Constable. No.
Triskaidekaphobia phobia is fear of what?
Number 13.
Actually, this is also. What is a baby rabbit called?
Kit and Kitten.
Which country had the dolphin as a ruler?
France.
Who did Michel Canny play in Asperges?
Who did?
Michel Cannon plays in Asperges File.
Harry Plummer.
Who won Eurosong? Contains Save All Your Kisses for Me.
Brotherhood of Man.
Which country has the guns of Navarone installed?
Turkey.
Eschatology study what?
Fish.
What is a Winston Churchill?
Figure.
Who or what lives in a formal serum?
Ants.
What type of acid is used in car batteries?
Sulfuric.
It's a flock of sheep. What's a group of owls called?
Parliament.
What animal would you find in form?
Hi.
Who in books and films was Man of Bronze?
The Dog Savage.
Who was Stan Laurel's partner?
Oliver Hardy.
What kind of food is Kulansink?
Fish.
What is classified by ABO system?
Blood groups.
What plant does the Colorado beetle attack?
Potato.
Where did the Pied Piper play?
Islands.
Where in France do the Sikh make pilgrimage?
Hordis.
In which city was the famous black hole?
Calicut.
Christopher Crockle invented what?
Hovercraft.
Ray Bolger played who in the Wizard of Oz?
Scary Road.
Sabostuff in French. What did the sabotage use?
Shoe. Sabosto means shoe.
Which part of human body contains the most gold?
Toenails.
If you have rubella, what would you have caught?
German Nazis.
Moses scale hardest substance is diamond. What is the softest?
Italian.
La Gioconda is better known as
Mona Lisa.
Okay, so now let's change to the Java. What is the order of method invocation in an applet?
Public void int, public void start, public void stop, public void destroy.
Name few tools for probing Java memory tasks.
JProb optimism.
Okay, and which memory areas ideas instance the static variable use?
Instance variables are stored on the static, whereas the static variables are stored on the heap.
What is JEE? What are JEE components and services?
And JE and JE2EE and Java 2 Enterprise Edition is an environment for developing and deploying enterprises and applications. The J2EE platform consisting of J2EE component services and application programming interfaces, APIs, and protocols that provide the functionality for developing multi-threaded and distributed web-based applications.
What are the components of J2EE?
Applets and clients components like client-side Java codes, web components like JSP, Servlets, WAR, devices Java Beans like Java Beans, and entity beans, message-driven beans, enterprises applications like WAR, JAR, EO.
What is XML?
XML is an extensible markup language. It's a markup language that describes the data is a metadata.
In Android we use front-end XML.
Okay.
Difference between SAX and DOM parser. Oh my god. Okay.
Not a problem. Okay, DOM, document object model parser creates a tree structure in the memory from an input documented, whereas a SAC, simple API for XML parses, does not create any internal structure. A SAC parser serves as a client application, always only with the pieces of the document at any given time, whereas a DOM parses always serves the client application with the entire document, no matter how much is actually needed by the client. The SAC parses, however, is much more space sufficient in case a big input document, whereas a DOM parses is rich in functionality. Use DOM parsing if you need to refer to different documents areas before giving back to information. Use SAC is just you needed unrelated nuclear information from the different areas. Creases, Crimson, and the SAC parses, whereas the Creases DOM and the Sun DOM, Oracle DOM, and the DOM parses.
So, Pramod, apart from this, I want you to ask one more question. What are the movies you watched recently? How was the movie? How was the movie? How is the movie actually? How was the movie actually? Sorry for the English.
The movie is very pretty good. I was very impressed with the movie.
And, so, how is the biopic? It was taken, screenplay and everything?
Yeah, everything is perfect.
So,
it's one of the best movies I watched in the theaters.
So, what was your first movie which you watched in theater?
Fast and Furious 7.
Where?
In IMAX, in GWR, I guess.
Okay, what was your favorite mall in Hyderabad?
Favorite mall? GWR only.
GWR itself.
Yeah.
And so, what is your favorite brand in textiles or like pant shirts, like clothing?
I don't prefer in the band, I prefer in the comfort, whatever brand I wear.
But what is your favorite mobile company?
There is nothing favorite mobile company to me. The thing is, the phone has to work when I'm using it.
And what is the current mobile which you are using?
Redmi 5A.
Okay. So coming towards the Java questions again. What is DTD?
DTD is a document type definition, is a standard agreed upon the way of the communication between the two parties. Your application can be used as a standard DTD to verify the data that you can receive from the outside world is valid and can parse your parser.
What is XSD?
XSD or XML SEMA definition is an extension of DTD. XSD is more powerful and extensible than DTD.
Okay. What is JAXP?
J stands for Java API for the XML processing. This provides a common interface for the creating and the use of the SAC and DOM and the XSLT API in Java, regardless in which the vendor implementation is actually being used.
What is JXB?
Stands for Java API for XML binding. This stance defines as a mechanism for writing the Java objects as XML and for creating the Java objects for the XML structures.
What is marshalling?
It's a process of creating XML structures out of the Java objects.
What is unmarshalling?
Unmarshalling is a process of creating the Java objects out of the XML structures.
Which load testing tools have you used?
Rational robot, JMeter, and load runner.
Okay. So what are the LDAP servers used for?
LDAP servers are typically used in J2EE applications to authenticate and authorize users. LDAP servers are hierarchical and optimized for the read access, so likely to be faster than database in providing the read access.
Okay. What's the difference between comparable and comparator in java.util.package?
Comparable interface is used to single sequence in sorting the objects based on the single data member, where the comparator interface is used to sort the objects based on the multi data members. What are different modules in the Spring? There are 7 core modules in the Spring: Spring MVC, the core container, OR mapping, DAO, application content, aspect oriented program, or AOP, web module.
Okay. Explain the flow of Spring MVC.
Okay. The dispatch servlet configured in the web XML receives the request. The dispatch servlet finds the appropriate controller with the help of the handler mapping, then invokes associated controller, then the controller executes the log business logs, and then returns mod and view object of the dispatch servlets. The dispatch servlets determines and view in the model and view objects, and the dispatch servlets has passer the model of the model object to the view. The view is rendered, and the dispatch servlet sends the output to the servlet containers. Finally, servlet containers send the result back to the user.
What is Spring configuration file?
The Spring configuration file is XML. The file contains the class information and describes how these classes are configured and introduced to each other.
What is default scope of a bean in Spring framework?
Default scope of a bean scheme is written for the Spring framework.
Okay. What bean scopes does Spring support? Explain that.
The Spring framework supports the following 5 scopes: singleton, prototype, request, session, and the global session.
What is bean auto wiring?
The Spring container is able to auto-wire relationship between the collaborating beans. This means that it is possible for automatically let Spring resolve collaborators other beans for you bean inspecting the containing of the bean factor without using the elements.
Difference between socket and servlet.
A servlet is a small and the server resident program that typically runs automatically in response to user input. Network socket is an endpoint to the inter-process communication flow across the computer network. We can think of it as a different between the door and gate. They are similar as both are entry points, but they are different in their put up at the different areas. Sockets are low-level network communications, whereas servlets are for implementing websites and the web services.
Difference between this and super.
This is a reference and to the current object in which this keyword is used, whereas a super is a reference and used to access the member specific to the parent class. This is primarily used for the accessing members variables with the local variables have same name for the constructor changing and passing itself to its method, whereas the super is primarily used to initially based class members within derived class constructor.
Okay. What are the phases of JSP lifecycle?
The translation of JSP lifecycle, compilation of JSP, class loading, class file is loaded by the class loader, instantaneous object of the generated servlet is created, initialization, JPL, NTIT method is invoked by the container, request processing, JSP server method is involving by the container, destroy, JSP destroy is a method involved by the container.
So the difference between the JSP scriptlet tag and JSP declaration tag.
The JSP scriptlet tag only can declare variables, not methods, whereas JSP declares the tags can declare the variable as well as the methods. The declaration scriptlet tag is placed inside the JSP service, the method, whereas the declaration JSP declaration tag is placed outside the JSP service method.
What are JSP directives and what are the different types of directives?
The JSP are the messages that tells the web container how to translate the JSP page into a corresponding servlet. There are the three types of directives: page directive, including directive, tag lib directive.
Okay. What is Java bytecode?
Java bytecode is the usual name for the machine language for the Java virtual machine. Java programs are compiled into the Java bytecode, which can then be executed by the JVM.
Okay. What is a listener?
In GUI programming, an object that can be registered to be notified when events of some given type occur, the object is said to be listened for the events.
What is MVC?
The model view controls the pattern, a strategy for dividing responsible for GUI component. The model is the date for the components. The view is the visual presentation of the component on the screen. The controller is responsible for the reacting to the events by changing the model according to the MVC pattern. The responsibilities should be handled by the different objects.
What is race condition?
The source is possible to errors in parallel programming, whereas one thread can be cause an error and another thread by charging some aspect of the state programming that can be second thread is depending on, such as value of variable.
What is Unicode?
The way of encoding the characters of binary numbers. The Unicode characters set includes the characters used in many languages, not just in English. The Unicode is just a character or set that it is used internally by Java.
What is thread factory?
The thread factor is an interface that meets by creating the threads instead of explicit creating the threads by calling a new thread. It's an object or that creates a new thread on demanding using the thread factories, removing the handwriting of the calls to the new thread, enabling applications to use the special threads, subclasses, priorities, etc.
What is permgen or permanent generation?
The memory pool containing all the reflective data of the Java virtual machine itself, such as a class and the method objects with Java's VMs, Java virtual machines that use in the class data sharing and the generation is divided into the real only and the read-write exam. The permanent generations container metadata is required to by the JVM describes the class and the methods used in the applications. The permanent generation is populated by the JVM and a runtime based on the classes used in the application. In addition, Java SC library classes and methods may be stored here.
What is metaspace?
The permanent generation permgen space has completed been removed by its kind of replaced by a new called metaspace, and the consequences of the permgen removal is that obviously the perm size and the max perm size JVM's arguments are ignored and you will never get a java.lang out of memory error permgen error.
So guys, actually it's like around 3 hours of continuous recording, so we will just take a 5 minutes of break now and we will be back at sharp 5:50. Okay. అరే ఇది తింటున్నారు